What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise Postgame show presented by BetOnline. This was an absolutely perfect tank loss for the Portland Trail Blazers. This was a great tank day in general. The Blazers lose, the Magic win. The Blazers and Magic are now tied in terms of wins. It looks like fifth best lottery odds are very achievable for this team. But this was a fantastic game to watch. Shaedon Sharpe, career-high 29 points. Nasir Little, after we talked about him for quite a bit on the last post-game show, has 28. And this game was close and competitive. The atmosphere inside Moda Center for Shaedon Sharpe having a great game was loud. And it still resulted in what this team ultimately needs. It resulted in a loss. So these are the types of games I want the rest of the season. A fantastic game, a fun game, a game that could help this team for the future, and a game that shows off the future for the Portland Trail Blazers, which is, of course, Shaedon Sharpe, another phenomenal game from him. Bless you, Eric. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Yeah, it was looking like they might pull this one out. But yeah, just perfect game. Enjoyable to watch. All the players play well and do good things out there, but then ultimately, not necessarily blow it at the end, but, Thunder just took over there and got the lead. And, yeah, fun game to watch back and forth, several lead changes and ties and all that kind of stuff. And then to see our 19-year-old rookie score 29 on 13 shots is just amazing. Like, he had a phenomenal night. Outside of the turnovers, maybe is probably the only negative thing you can say about him tonight. Missed a couple of free throws out there to give him 30 points, which would have been cool to see him get a 30 spot. But other than that, I mean, this guy is just playing phenomenal right now.
Yeah, and he kind of carried this team. He was a plus 11 on the court in 35 minutes. In 13 minutes, he was off the court. This team got outscored by 17 points, more than a point per minute. It's just crazy because obviously none of these guys are shot creators, except for Shaedon Sharpe. And Shaedon Sharpe is taking that next step in terms of being a shot creator. Had 3 assists, 5 turnovers was a problem. Kind of some of the struggles in regards to the turnovers that I talked about on the last postgame show, just with getting bumped on his drive or just not seeing the second defender, that sort of thing. Things that he will get better at. But you're just looking for flashes. And 9 for 13 from the field. 3 for 5 from 3. 8 for 11 from the line. He gets to the line like a star today. Almost matched SGA's free throw numbers, which SGA gets to the line a ton. Mm-hmm. SGA was 13 for 15 from the line.
Switch to Verizon and get Welcome
Nope,
Unlimited.
I will not switch. I will not switch to Verizon ESPN. Actually, I'm already on Verizon, not going to lie. But Shaedon Sharpe matched SGA in this game. He matched SGA. His countryman, shout out Jonathan Evers, who noticed the maple leaf in the post-game thumbnail. That was a touch I like to add. And yeah, this was a fantastic game. A fantastic game to watch. A fantastic game from Sharpe. We'll talk more about him in a second. But first, let me thank BetOnline. Use that promo code BELIEVE. I don't know why my camera is so big. We had technical difficulties setting up. So, yeah.
Hello, Tori's head.
Yeah. My head does not need to be that big. That's not how it's supposed to go. But thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring this postgame show. Use that promo code BELIEVE as I shrink my camera. Believe for a 50% reward bonus. The Final Four has been set. It's a crazy Final Four. You can get in on the craziness with BetOnline. Baseball season starts in 4 days. You can get in on that as well. NASCAR, boxing, golf, like every sport, they got you covered. And use that promo code for that 50% reward bonus. Playoffs coming up. Blazers don't look like they'll be a part of it, but you can still get some enjoyment with BetOnline. Okay, so we're good to go. Yeah, I mean, basically the rest of the season is, can Sharpe take a jump? Can Sharpe change the conversation about our offseason from like, okay, we're going in with Sharpe probably the sixth man off the bench to maybe we have to start him next year? I mean, if he keeps having games like this, it'll be hard to keep him off the bench. But, if that becomes a conversation, that's because he's playing like this. It's a good thing. It's a good problem to have. If he keeps playing like this the rest of the year, man, I mean, I think it changes the outlook going into next year because he's been fantastic and he's just starting to be that shot creator we expected him to be at some point in his career, getting downhill, just being a little creative, finishing shots in the paint, not necessarily just having to dunk everything or resort to a mid-range. That little like running bank shot he had was really nice, like getting stuff down from that range when he can't get all the way to the rim, but being able to score if he stopped at 5-7 feet, that's the type of stuff that stars do. So seeing things like that are just the flashes that I was hoping to see from him with these extended minutes, and he's playing confident. It's just really fun to watch.
Yeah, or he's increasing his trade value, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that's also a part of the conversation is, well
dude, I think people are gonna riot if we trade him. So
yeah,
like he's almost like, I wouldn't say he's untouchable, because obviously if we get like Embiid or Giannis or someone like that, like you probably have to include him to put your offer over the top of other teams. But yeah, like if they just trade him for like OG or something like that, this, like they tried to do this summer, this city is gonna freaking riot, man.
absolutely. And what was the conversation we had 2 days ago in regards to his, or 2 post-game shows ago, about his trade value? Or maybe it was 3 post-game shows ago, but we had a conversation, and you were saying that you didn't think GMs would value him as much as we could have gotten for him this past summer.
To be fair, that was before these last 3 starts. So yeah, it was, I don't know. I think, you're talking about Sharp or OG?
Yeah, Sharp.
Yeah, Sharp. I just think with the minutes he was playing and stuff, I think other GMs were starting to wonder if, like, what's the reason behind that? Like, we suck and we're not playing him. And this is another reason why it kind of makes me mad when watching Sharp, because like if Chauncey just would have taken the training wheels off a couple months ago and just let him play this whole time like this. We saw a quote of Chauncey before the game saying that from here on out, he's just going to put Sharp on their best player and let him learn how to play defense and stuff like that. I was a little worried about that tonight with SGA because he's a foul baiter. So, like, I didn't want Sharp to foul out and not be able to play 30 minutes so we couldn't see him set his new career high. But, yeah, like, it's just going to always leave me wonder if this season would have turned out differently had Chauncey just let him get into the fire like this sooner. And by now, seeing what Sharp could have been, and if that we possibly could have won some games somewhere down the road. Same thing with like Nas now, and it's not like Nas has played great at any point this season, outside of flashes, but like the whole play Cam Reddish 40 minutes that we were doing after the trade deadline and stuff like that. Like, I wonder what would have happened if we would have given those minutes and a more consistent role to some of these players like Nas and Sharp. And, like, would we be in the play-in right now? Like, I don't know. And how much brighter would our future look if we had those players more consistent, and how much more trade value would all these players have outside of Sharp even that are going to be under contract this summer, like a Nas that instead of having maybe negative value or no value is could have had maybe some positive value. So that's where my mind kind of wandered during this game. Like, why didn't we see this by now? Because if Sharp's this ready to score, 24, 29 points consistently, like, he could have been ready weeks ago for that. So it's kind of bothering me a little bit.
I mean, I would not bet on Nas consistently having offensive outputs like this.
I'm talking about Sharp.
Oh, Sharp. Here's the thing. Here's my point to all that is it is easier on these guys when there's basically no pressure to win.
Well, for
and
sure.
They know, like, Nas didn't know, because I was talked about last game, like, Nas should be playing 30 minutes every game no matter what. Because he didn't last game. Nas played 31 minutes tonight. But it is easier going out there, with no pressure to win. And for a guy like Sharp, he's playing completely free right now because it doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter if he makes mistakes. Like, these guys are in a situation that is best for them putting up impressive performances. Now, they're still impressive performances. This isn't to take away from the performance, because this is the flashes of upside for both these guys that we've talked about. But at the same time, we talked about how Chauncey needs to hold players more accountable and, bench a guy for making a bad defensive mistake or making this mistake or that mistake. When you have that sort of pressure on you and you're playing next to a Dame, so you're not seeing the ball constantly, and then you have more pressure to win, it is it is harder to have these sorts of performances. So that's obviously the next step for a guy like Sharp, and hopefully Nasir Little is in those sorts of situations, those sorts of games, they can actually like rise to those challenges, because they have talent. They have talent. It's just with Nas is finding consistency, and with Sharp it's, time and patience. So there's the one thing about these final 9 games, but that's exactly why they should be playing 30 to 35 minutes, is you want to see what they can do if they're playing up to their potential. And this is the perfect situation with no pressure, with a guaranteed 30 to 35 minutes. It's a perfect situation to see just how good they are if they play up to their potential. And then you can take that into account in the offseason in regards to trying to fix this roster. So, it's promising. Nas has had games like this before, though. A couple years ago, he had a game like this, I think, against Milwaukee. Nas will randomly have these performances. With Nas, it's always been about consistency, so I'm not going to, read too much into this. Now, if he averages 28 the rest of the season, then we can have a different conversation if he does it across 9 games. But with Sharp, it's him ascending to, it's the next step on his path is what he's reaching right now.
But in my mind, we weren't winning games anyway. We've been struggling since basically November, right? So, why not let him learn on the floor, make those mistakes on the floor, and, a month into that, if it's still, mid-January, it still would have been, 2 months ago that we could have possibly seen some of these players breaking out like this instead of, last 10 games of the season on a tanking team. But,
yeah.
So that's what frustrates me, though.
They should have both been playing more. We talked about minutes all season long. They both should have been playing more. I'm just saying, because I know some people will go out there and view these guys' performances over the last 9 games as like, they could have done this for us and we could have been a playoff team because of it, where, this is the right situation for them. This is the perfect situation for them to have their best potential games. That probably wouldn't have been how it would have played out, even if they got more minutes earlier in the season.
Yeah, but I mean, we had games where we were, like I said, we were starting Cam Reddish and playing him 40 minutes when those guys are playing 10 and 13 minutes, So I wonder what would happen in those games if we prioritized developing Sharp over seeing what Cam Reddish could do.
Okay, so just because you're bringing him up, Mr. Reddish today, it's crazy how he's become an afterthought, it feels like. He had 19 minutes today. He had 4 points, a steal, a turnover, a foul. He was 1 for 4 from the field, made both his free throws, a minus 22 in his 19 minutes. So I think some... I probably shouldn't say that, but screw it, I'm going to. I think some people who were really hard on me for not being high on Cam Reddish might owe me an apology, but I don't care. They don't have to give me one. I think at this point you're seeing that battle being won if we only keep one of Thibault and Reddish. I feel like that battle's already been won, and it's by Thibault because Thibault played 33 minutes today, Eric. Mm-hmm. Reddish played 19, and Reddish has been struggling the past few games. This is what we talked about with the inconsistency with him. He has some talent, but he hasn't been able to consistently put it together. The last 2 games, he's 2 for 10 in 41 minutes. He has 8 points in his last 41 minutes of play. He's 2 for 10. Now, he had a 4 for 8 game before that, had 11. But, I mean, he's struggling. His 3-point percentage in Portland is down to his career average of about 32%. So he's not efficient. Defense hasn't been great. I mean, I don't want to spend too much because I want this to be a more positive stream because this was a great game. But he struggled today, and I think you might see this battle being decided right now because Thibault's playing almost double the minutes the past couple of games.
Well, I saw Cam check into this game, and then it was literally 7 or 8 minutes of game time later that he missed a shot or something, got his own rebound and kicked out to a 3-pointer. And I was like, what, has he just been doing nothing this entire stint? What, yeah. I didn't even remember a single play, a rebound or a defensive play or anything. It was just weird. But yeah, he's
just prone to kind of floating.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to bringing him back if it's like a super cheap deal, but
Yeah.
I think even his qualifying offer of 8 million or whatever is a little too much.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I'm not getting the same people spam tagging me on Twitter saying he's Paul George light and an elite scorer anymore. So that's been nice, a nice part of this development. But I would like to see Cam having more of an impact. It's just, this is kind of what I expected. I think some people out there made expectations way too high for him. So when I talk about a guy like a Cam Reddish or a guy like a Drew Eubanks, a lot of times it's taking into context a lot of the expectations for these guys. At this point, when he's playing 19 minutes and just being this quiet, and you talk about Jody Allen's situation, I don't see how this team could view him as a piece that's like for sure going to help them win next year. And with him being a restricted free agent, I just feel like Cam Reddish, we're seeing him trend towards not being a part of the roster next year.
Yeah.
Especially if Nas has games like this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think Kevin Reese might be They Call Me Juicy.
What?
They had the same exact post about Dame being the highest offensive rating in the league and having the worst defensive rating.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him.
First of all, offensive and defensive rating for individuals is like the dumbest stat of all time. So if you want to try to argue anything with that,
it's a five-man stat. Yeah,
it's just ridiculous. But yeah, so you can't even read anything into that. So use more better advanced metrics like defensive EPM or something. But no, it's not interesting at all because all the Blazers are terrible at defensive rating. Yeah, but it literally means nothing because it just means that the team sucks at defense.
Yeah. So they're not the same person. They just both posted at the same time. And one of the posts was like, I guess I'm Kevin Reese now.
No, the other one was earlier in the stream.
Yeah, no, I mean they just posted at the same time, so I don't think they're the same person. But yeah, no defensive or offensive rated for individuals. Okay, it's a stat that's determined by the 5 players on the floor when that player plays. So they can have a small hand in impacting it, but if you're on a bad defensive team, your defensive rating is not going to be good because it's a bad defensive team. Like it's pretty much what it is. So. I don't use offensive and defensive rating for analyzing individuals because there are, as you said, better stats out there. Yeah, so anything else you wanted to talk about with Cam Reddish?
It's just weird now that we're tanking. He's not he's not even like a part of the thing. Like they're not even really
This is what I wanted, though.
Care what's happening with it right now, right?
Yeah. This is what I wanted, though. Do you think that's foreboding? Like, or do you think that's...
I don't know, because when we have T starting, it's like... See, this is the thing with Cronin, and this goes back to last year for me. When we had several free agents that they talked into sitting out, like Nurkic and Anthony, but they pretty much had the parameters of an offer guaranteed to them if they were willing to do that, right? Whereas, like, this is the only explanation I can think of as to why Matisse is even playing so much right now. Because, like, they must view it as they're not 100% sure with his agent if he's going to resign here or not, or if he's going to explore free agency. And he doesn't want to sit because if we don't re-sign him, then that'll hurt his value for other teams. But if he, I don't. So I think maybe we're just doing a favor to his agent to play him. Maybe I forgot who his agent was, but I could look that up in a minute. But maybe there's some sort of benefit from that. But it just seems like we're only playing him for a favor, and maybe the favor was reversed now with Reddish. We gave him some time. They have an agreement or something, or they know what they have in Reddish, and now they're just putting him on the back burner. I could definitely see that over just randomly stop playing him all of a sudden,
If they have an agreement with Cam Reddish that's anything more than like $2 to $3, maybe $4 million a year max, I will lose my mind because that's not the type of guy you give a guaranteed contract to in March or in February. Like, yeah. Okay, here's my worst fear. Here's my worst fear is like Reddish came in and had like a couple good games and shot the ball like 33% over a small sample size, and had a couple impressive moments, and Cronin was like, oh, okay, well, we'll give you $8 million a year this offseason, $9 million a year, right? So they've already agreed, and now Cam Reddish is sitting. If Cronin did that, I'm going to be pissed. Because, like, for Anthony Simons and Yusuf Nurkic, they're starters. And you know that they're starters. Some people make the case Yusuf Nurkic is a starter quality big, whatever. But, like, Yusuf Nurkic is the starter for this team, right? Like, you know what the role those guys are going to play. You know how many minutes they're going to play next year, barring injury, of course. Like, those guys, and they're unrestricted free agents, so they could walk for nothing to another team. Or no, Ant was restricted, but Yusuf Nurkic was unrestricted, so it made sense to give him a guarantee because he could have left for whatever. Yeah. When you got a guy like Cam Reddish and he's a restricted free agent, so you can match whatever he gets, and he hasn't played good enough to get anything on the market, if you then basically probably guaranteed him an overpay because he's not accepting anything in March unless it's probably an overpay because he's a restricted free agent. If that's what Cronin did, and if that's true, Eric, that is already, the offseason hasn't started yet, and he's already had a misstep. You can't pigeonhole your team with guys like that.
Cam's with clutch, just to warn you.
That is my worst fear. The thing is, there's a chance that that's true. And if Cronin is pigeonholing this team into paying Cam Reddish when he already has a cheap owner, you can sit there and say, oh, well, it's not his fault the owner's cheap. Okay, well, you got to work around that in a as productive of a way as possible. Mm-hmm. If there's any sort of guarantee for Cam Reddish, that is not working around that in the most productive way possible. So if that's true, then we're already screwed. We won't find out if that's true until free agency. But it's like, it would be one thing if he was a guy that we knew could help us get to where we need to go. We don't know that. He doesn't look like that. He's never proven that on any other team either. You do not limit your options going into an offseason for a guy that is at best a fringe rotation player when he's going to be a restricted free agent anyway, so it's not like he can walk if you match.
Yeah. And then,
so that's my fear.
Shout out to Wampet, who was the first with this. Aaron Goodwin is Dyble's agent, so it's Dame's agent, and yeah. Yeah.
The fact that you brought that up, just all the good vibes from this good tanking loss are out the window, because now I'm just...
As Trevin mentioned, that's also Gary Payton's agent, too, who we did a favor to by getting him back to Golden State and giving him a bag. Yeah. So I could definitely see, Dybul being part of that. But, yeah, interesting.
That's just so gross. Like, especially when they could have just taken back, like, Hartenstein instead of Reddish, right? In that trade, and then they would have had a contract to trade this offseason, and it's a guy that would be able to help. So it's like, if you already guaranteed Cam Reddish a contract in the same ballpark as Hartenstein, why didn't you just take back Hartenstein instead of Reddish?
Because Cam's the next PG.
That's the thing, is that, like, you would have fixed the backup big spot for next year, too, would have had another tradable contract to create more flexibility this offseason instead of taking away because you're guaranteeing a guy who's a free agent that you can't trade, who's worse than the guy you could have gotten, who isn't at a position of need as much as the guy you could have gotten. So, yeah. If Cam Reddish is back for anything more than like $5 million a year, $4 or $5 million a year, I will rant about it. I promise you now.
It's going to be an interesting offseason. Make or break off season over possibly doing favors again.
It's just sad that, like, we have to question, because that's the Cronin thing to do.
Yep.
Is to make it harder on himself by doing a favor. Or guaranteeing something he shouldn't. So. Anyway. Kevin Reese says, I'm confused why that matters, though. $3 million difference, you're mad that the owner is paying more money. Here's the thing. If he resigns for like $4 or $5 million, it's probably not a guarantee. It's probably they go into the offseason. They're willing to do other things with that money, but then can't. So at least they're exploring all their options. And then they're like, okay, well, we still have this money left over. Okay, we'll bring you back for like $5 million a year. $4 or $5 million a year. Like, that's fine. If it's $8 million a year that they guaranteed now, that's $8 million that they're taking away from any other possible path or option. That's the problem.
Well, and here's the other part. Re-signing Cam doesn't matter. I mean, I hate to be this blunt, but it's not going to be the difference on whether this team turns the corner from this year to next year and is a playoff team, because they gave him a chance to be part of that, and the team wasn't good enough. So, like, re-signing him isn't going to matter. So, like, if that's like the kind of moves we're already planning to do, I just think that's very, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, because this team is always short-sighted. I could go back to 2019, the 2019 offseason. Ever since then, both Olshey and Cronin have been very short-sighted with their moves and not thinking about the next year or the year after that when it comes to moves. And everything's been predicated on financial ramifications and things like that. So I really just, I worry that that's the kind of mid moves they'll make without, doing what it takes to get Dame some help. And if we're already like giving promises or doing stuff like that with agents, then I just don't have a lot of hope in this franchise.
Yep, absolutely. Sharp is okay. So these performances by Sharp, to get back to his performance and the positivity of it, just how he's looked past couple of games, like, is that changing how you're envisioning him going into next year? And if so, how are you envisioning him right now going into next year?
It doesn't, because I still think, like, even if he's like a 20-point per game scorer next year, I'm not saying he will be, but if he is, like, why can't he still do that off the bench? Like, why can't he lead our bench unit?
Yeah.
Like,
well, is that how you were envisioning him even before this? Like, he should lead the bench unit next year?
Well, I didn't know if he was going to be ready next year, so I thought we should have a better bench. But, like, quite frankly, he was probably our best bench player early in the season, yeah. and then he started to struggle a little bit when his role started to be messed with a little bit, and we had injuries, and he wasn't getting more opportunities. He was getting less. It was just really weird. But he was averaging like 10 points a game early on in the season. And so I think I just don't see a reason why, with 3 years left on his rookie deal, why we have to force him into a starting role or a certain situation where we have to trade one or the other. And I've been saying this for a couple games now. I still feel like he plays more like a 3. And the only reason why he wouldn't work as a 3 on Portland is because if you put him at the 3, that means Dame and Ant are still probably at the 1 and 2, and we need our 3 to be that kind of lockdown perimeter defender. But I thought he did a fairly good job today at defense, so there's no reason why he can't possibly have that role. So, like, he could either play some minutes at the 3, like we talked about last post-game show, or be that bench scorer. And I'm more confident now that he can be that role in next year's season. But I've never thought like, oh, if he plays well, we have to get rid of someone to make room for him.
Yeah, that's like the soaking in the moment type of thing to say, is just see a game like this and be like, okay, now we gotta trade Ant so we can start Sharp and give him 35 minutes a game. When, like, this time last year, a little bit more than a year ago, it was Anthony Simons having those moments, and it was like, okay, we gotta trade CJ so we can start Anthony Simons. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like, okay, well, at what point then is we gonna have another good rookie, and it becomes a conversation. Now, maybe Sharp is just so much better than both those guys, it never is a conversation. That is certainly possible with his upside. But that's the thing is you get caught up chasing the new thing, and that's not always the best. So I'm with you. Here's what it becomes. He can play 30 minutes off the bench and lead the bench unit. I'm confident with him leading the bench unit next year because the three-point shooting is real, off the catch and off the dribble. Okay? But he's starting to get downhill more, and he's starting to get more creative with, like, the in-between stuff. Like, that Euro step he had to his right hand was phenomenal. Like, that's the type of move you want to see from him, where he's not just trying to, like, beat his guy off the dribble, like, to the backboard, where he's just kind of playing at his own pace and then just making a move, because he has the wingspan and the height, and hopefully in the future the strength to just kind of slow down. You know, he's not going to be Luka, but that Luka style of basketball where you just kind of slow down in that range and just get a good shot off, and you don't have to beat people with speed. The fact that he's showing flashes of that, I think, is huge. The floater he had, the little, like, left-footed runner he had off the backboard, that's the type of stuff that will make him a complete scorer. Because if he can score from that range and hopefully get a little quicker, that's something he needs to work on, then he's a true elite 3-level scorer off the bench, potentially, you know, star level 3-level scorer, because the 3-point shooting is real. That mid-range stuff, you know, he's always been able to shoot mid-range jumpers, but the little float stuff, push shots, that sort of thing, he'll continue to learn that from Dame and from Ant, because Ant has a bag too. So if he can just, you know, get a little bit quicker off the dribble, and some of that will be becoming a better ball handler, then he should be able to get to the rim a little bit more, and then he uses his athleticism, then that's when the NBA has a problem on their hands. So he should trend more towards that even than he is now. So next year, I'm expecting him to be able to lead the bench unit. The biggest thing I think he needs to work on is his ball handling. That's one of the easiest things to work on. Like, this offseason, it should be strength, maintaining every other part of his game, maybe trying to learn some things defensively, but mainly strength, ball handling. Strength will help him on both ends of the court. Ball handling will help him get to his spots easier. So, anyway. I agree, but here's the thing with trading. If he, you know, him playing like this does make trading Ant for something worthwhile, maybe more of a conversation, right? Like if it's an Ant for a on-ball defender, 3-and-D guy that has, you know, shooting guard, small forward size that you could play with Sharp, it does make it a little bit easier to pull off that trade because you have that guy who's maybe a little bit more ready than you were expecting that will be able to step in and replace some of Anthony Simons's offensive production, right? Whereas, like before the season, if you were projecting, nobody should have expected Sharp to be ready to handle a starting role going into next year, just due to his basketball path, not having college experience. Like, this has been a successful rookie season. I'm impressed with how he's progressed so far. Nobody should have expected him to be able to start, so it would have been something like, okay, you can trade Ant for that guy, but who's going to replace, you know, if it's not somebody that's as good offensively as Anthony Simons, how are you going to replace that offensive production if Sharp's not ready? You know, you don't, what is that accomplishing? So it does make trading Anthony Simons, those conversations, a little bit more feasible, but it should only be for something that is worthwhile, a trade that makes sense. It shouldn't be thought of in the mindset of, we have to get rid of Anthony Simons because of Shaedon Sharp.
Yeah.
We're not to that point yet. And here's the thing. If Sharp comes off the bench and plays 30 minutes a game next year and averages 20 points per game off the bench, you know, in those 30 minutes, like if he's just so insane next year, then you trade Anthony Simons at the deadline. Or the team is, you know, maybe has home court advantage and you just have the perfect mix of offensive and defensive pieces. I don't know. And you want to keep Sharp in that role. Like, that's possible too. But it's not something where they have to make that decision this offseason. If anything, it just makes it easier to pull the trigger on a move that would balance things out more.
Yeah. And we absolutely could get stuck. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about this now, but I do have some kind of scenarios to bring about. As we get later in the show, it's probably a better time for it. But yeah, I agree. I don't think I think you go into this offseason trying your best to keep your main players, and you use the picks and the players that you don't think are part of your core to try and get the best players possible. if a star becomes available, you obviously should be willing to include Anthony and those kind of players. If it takes Sharp to get an Embiid, then I think you have to consider it as well. But we're talking about now being fifth best lottery odds. Outside of getting the first pick, we're going to have a huge trade chip because I don't see any team trading the number one pick. So we're basically going to have, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, one of the biggest trade chips in the NBA this summer. And if you add that to, say, Nurk and Nas and Kevin Knox and Keon or something, like, who does that get you, right? And I think they should explore that versus saying, oh, Anthony has to go. Because I would love to see like Anthony just being out there as like the fourth option, as like just a spot up shooter, and like just defenses can't even key on him because like he would go absolutely crazy in that scenario. And so like I don't necessarily think it has to be one or the other right now. It might come at one point, but not now, I don't think.
Yep. So let's continue kind of this trade talk, setting up this offseason trade-wise. There's a question that says, do any teams have a big enough trade exception to absorb Nurk's contract? I'm not sure about that, but let me just say this. I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but let me just say this about Nurkic and trade talk I've seen around him. People need to lead going into this offseason, at least this community, because I challenge you guys to be above a lot of the BS trade talk, right? Going into this offseason, if you're talking about trading Nurk, it should be to accomplish something specific, and you should be able to articulate that. Because too many people in this fan base, and even people that write covering this team, always lead with getting rid of Nurk as being the accomplishment, but that actually doesn't accomplish anything. So, I'm not against every single Nurk move. I'm not against potentially looking at another center, but it has to make sense. It has to make sense. No matter how you feel about Nurkic, you have to make this team better next year. You have to accomplish something if you're going to trade him. Maybe it opens up a different move, whatever, but if you're talking about, oh, well, let's just trade Nurkic to this team because they can absorb him and that'll get his salary off our books. Okay, what does that actually accomplish? Because nothing makes sense unless it leads to this team getting better. Nothing makes sense unless it leads to this roster accomplishing something in terms of getting another piece to make them better, getting maybe a better center, that sort of thing. And this is kind of the comment I'm talking about. The person I brought up says, I like Nurkic, but it seems like we will have to trade him to get better. Okay, why do we have to trade him to get better? And okay, if that's the case, if we have to trade him to match salary, who is that for? And then also, how do we find our starting center if we don't get one back? Mm-hmm. That's the conversations around trading Nurk. Because a lot of people, it's like, the conversations around trading Nurk is like, I'm sick of him, get rid of him. And that's all the conversation is. It's nothing beyond that. So people will say, I would go get Miles Turner. Okay, he might not be available. Also, how do you solve the rebounding issue? Because he's a terrible rebounding center and Jeremy Grant's a terrible rebounding power forward. That's the thing, is when you're bringing a guy in, so maybe you think it accomplishes something, you actually have to think about, okay, well, sure, he's a bigger name. Sure, a lot of people say he's a better center. I'm not arguing he's not a better center. But what's the biggest issue with them? Rebounding. What's the biggest issue with Jeremy Grant at the 4? Rebounding. So if you have both those guys, how are you, the rebounding's an issue, but then also, you're going to have to give up assets on top of Nurkic to get Miles Turner. How are you fixing the small forward problem? Because that's a bigger problem than the center position. So it's so much more nuanced than the people that just sit here and say, we got to get rid of Nurk. He's not good enough. We have to trade him.
If you want to come up with trade packages that include Nurk, that's fine. But what Tori is saying is then either that has to be for a center or for a way to get a center down the road, and you have to then outline how that works. So don't just say, oh, we'll use our MLE on a center. Who are you
there's
signing?
A comment
like, right?
that says if you trade him for a max guy, okay, like who would that hypothetically be? I mean, there's some names out there, but there's a comment that says if you trade him for a max guy, I think a solid vet center would be more likely to join us. Okay, who? You know, I know you guys don't know who's free agents off the top of your heads. But that's the thing, is a lot of the the trade talk and trade ideas is based around like hypotheticals that aren't super specific. And when you start to look at some of the things, it's like, okay, well, this vet center would be good, but there's going to be half the league going after them if it's a vet center on the cheap that's actually good. So are we going to be the one team out of like 15 going after him that are going to be able to land him? Okay, no, okay, so then what? You move down the list, at some point you get to a range where it's like, oh my goodness, we're not going to have a starting caliber center. Center is going to be a major issue. Because we're going to have a worse, player at that center position than Yusuf Nurkic. So we might have gotten better here, but we opened up a hole here, and now we can't address it, So that's the problem. And Crypto AK, who I was just responding to, says DeMarcus Cousins. Bro, DeMarcus Cousins isn't even in the league, let alone is he a starting caliber center. You cannot go into next season with DeMarcus Cousins as the starting center. He's more injury prone than Yusuf Nurkic, and he's not good defensively. He's terrible. Like, if you had DeMarcus Cousins as our center, we'd be guaranteed to be a bottom 5 defense, even if we went out and got the small forward that can defend on the ball. So that's the problem. Anyway.
Portal is not signing for 10 million MLE. And we might not even have the full MLE if we resign Grant. So,
and if we guaranteed Reddish to a
what drives me crazy, it's like a lot of the same people who freaking hate Nurkic that then have the dumbest ideas of replacing him, that like for worse players and that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of funny.
Like Zeller, like. If it's a trade for Zach Collins, if
Alex
there's...
Wolf is trolling.
Yeah.
He said Justin Patton before that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, is some people might have liked Cody Zeller. I don't know. Like, here's the thing. Like, Zachary Collins, okay, I would take... If we could trade Nurkic in a package that made sense for, like, an OG Anunoby, and then we could get Zach Collins without having to give up too much for Zach Collins, then that's okay. But the thing is like, how are you getting Zach Collins?
Well, but here's the deal, though. One, Zach is just as unreliable injury-wise as Nurk, and we're back to we'd have to have a very good, competent backup center. So until we give that same privilege to Nurkic, we'd have to do the same thing with Collins. So, like, I'd be fine with having both of those guys, like Nurk and Collins, on the team, and then hopefully just one of them's healthy enough they're both not hurt at the same time, so one of them can play. So that's the thing, is like, we need, if we're going to trade Nurkic or whatever, it's got to be either for someone who's comparable to him that we don't have to give up much for, but we're just trying something different, or it has to be a clear, like no doubt upgrade if we're giving up other assets in the deal.
Yeah. You're going to hate this, but GJ Vega does have a good point. He says, I don't think they're trying to replace him, but Nurk has to be the guy to potentially match salaries. We're likely going to downgrade at center this offseason. The thing is if it's a slight downgrade and you get much better elsewhere, okay, fine. If it's as much of a downgrade as you get better elsewhere, it doesn't accomplish anything. So then if you're also losing assets, then, okay, we're losing assets to not get any better. That's not good. But now, to match salaries, if it's a situation where you're using Nurkic to match salaries, and you're able to go get Zach Collins because he's cheaper, so you can absorb him with a TPE, and everything makes sense asset-wise, then that is where it would make sense. Or maybe it's a guy who's hasn't been playing as good as Zach Collins has been playing, because he's been phenomenal, but is maybe a little healthier than Zach Collins has been in his career. That is maybe a slight step down from Nurkic, but is cheaper. And you need Nurkic's salary to make some big splash for some big-time, player, then sure. But the thing is those big splashes where you need Nurkic's salary aren't super realistic. So that's the problem, is like the conversation leads to how realistic are those big splashes and who are they for, when a lot of other people that bring up Yusuf Nurkic, their conversation isn't that. Their conversation is completely on the other side of the universe in terms of we got to get rid of him. So that's my entire point with talking about Nurkic and talking about trade talk as we enter this offseason, is like, it's a very nuanced discussion where there might be a path where trading him would accomplish something, but it's a very nuanced discussion. it's far beyond what I normally hear from the people that don't like him.
Jesse, man, this is the whole, like, this is Tori and I, our whole platform, right? We don't like when someone just says we need to trade someone, or just trade him to get better elsewhere and then make a lateral move and fill his spot. I want examples, man. Like, give us actual realistic moves that would make that happen. Like, who can we trade Nurk for that's an upgrade at the 3 that we could then make we'd have the pieces to then make a secondary move to bring in a lateral guy. But if we're talking about trading Nurkic, let's just say we traded Nurk for picks and OG or something, right? And then I don't want to go into next season with like Drew Eubanks and Dwight Howard or DeMarcus Cousins as our center core. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem. We can't do that. So if that's the plan, like, that just will not work. Like we want to avoid that kind of stuff. So if we have like an actual way of getting a center, like Nick Thompson brings up Kelly Olynyk. Okay, like, I don't really like Kelly Olynyk as the starting center on this team, but like, that's actually like a legit name that we could possibly get that might be somewhat realistic, you know? And for those saying Wemby, like, obviously, this isn't like meant to like bash you guys or anything, but like the whole conversation changes if we get Wemby, so that's not even going to be
like roster construction is a completely different conversation with that dude on the roster for just our pick. Then, like, it's a totally different conversation than we've ever had on this channel, because you're talking about a dude that can play probably the 4 or the 5, who's just the most unique player in NBA history. I mean, he changes the conversation within the NBA just by arriving. Yeah. So, yeah, if you had him and you're comfortable with him playing the center spot next year, then obviously you are willing to trade Nurkic for anything that is solid or good. But also at the same time, it's like, I think Nurkic and Wemby would fit well together. I think you would play Wemby at the 4, Grant at the 3, Nurk at the 5, and then defensively you just have Dame and Ant overplay everything on the perimeter and funnel everything towards Grant, Wembanyama, and Nurkic, and you just have the greatest rim protection 3 through 5 maybe in the league, because Wemby and Grant would probably be the best rim protecting forwards in the league. Like, I think Wemby will be a better rim protector than Evan Mobley, who's probably the best rim protecting 4 in the league. Jeremy Grant would be the best rim protecting 3, right? Like, granted, the 3 has some issues, but defensively, like, you could probably put together an okay defense by playing that way with that collection of guys, right? And then it becomes a situation where maybe you're a little bit more okay with Drew Eubanks as a backup center because Wemby's playing some of those backup center minutes. So Drew Eubanks isn't playing much, right? And Wemby is, staggered with Nurkic a little bit. So that's the thing when you have a 4-5 like that should be playing 30 to 35 minutes a game, is then it changes the conversation with the backup center spot too if you keep Nurkic. So that's how the roster construction conversation changes. Also, I've been hard on Watford in terms of, like, I don't think we should just count on him being a part of the rotation next year, but if you stagger Wemby, you start him, sub him out early, sub him back in with the bench, Wemby's the perfect player to put next to Trent Watford. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't imagine a better player to pair in the power forward center spot with Trent Watford than Victor Wembanyama.
Yep. That's why I keep coming back to Nicholas Claxton, because he only makes like $8.5 million.
Yeah.
And so we can match him with, say, Nas. And let's say we got like the 4th, 5th, 6th pick or whatever. Like, we could make that trade just straight up, like the 6th pick and Nas for Clax maybe. Like, I don't know if they do that or not, but those are the kind of moves I would look at. And I think he's the most realistic, because, like, Turner and Ayton, I think, make too much. You're going to have to pay Claxton after a year, but like, he's exactly what we need at that center position, where we need like a rim protector and someone who's easily switchable on the perimeter and stuff like that. Now it's going to hurt us maybe, offensively, having that connector at the center with that Nurkic. Nurkic is, losing that it will hurt a little bit, but that guy could absolutely change things. And then you have Nurkic's salary, and you still have your future picks if you free him up. You still have the 23rd pick or whatever that ends up being to attach to Nurkic to then make an upgrade at the 3 or the 4, depending on where you want to play Jeremy. So, I mean, I personally, I don't like the idea. Like, I wish we could just draft 2 players and just run with it and hope we eventually get another player like Sharp, and then we're set for years. And if Dame is good enough to still be a part of that in a couple of years, great. If not, eventually, maybe he asks out or whatever, and we can move on or whatever. But I just think like going after like Ayton or somebody like that. I mean, the guy makes a max contract now. Like I just think those would be stupid trades to give up the assets we have. And I saw People's Mix say earlier, oh, what if we didn't have to give up Anthony or Sharp in a Karl Anthony Towns trade? We can't even match his contract without one of those 2 guys. So the problem is we don't have that stuff.
Yep. For those of you asking for a tank emoji, try now. And Claxton would be awesome. If the pick doesn't move up to top 4, I think it becomes you try and trade that pick in like Nas or whatever. Maybe Keon plus Knox, I don't know. You try and trade that pick for Claxton, and then you go and you take Nurkic in your future first and try and make a play for, I don't know, OG, or we probably couldn't get McHale with that package, but, for something. For a 3 that can defend on the ball, like a good defensive 3 that can shoot threes, Maybe you include Nurkic in that Brooklyn trade in order to match salary for Dorian Finney-Smith, right? And you trade a first, and you got Finney-Smith and you got Claxton. I think that
would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the type of fallback plan that I would try. Now, I am very wary on Claxton being available, even for like the 6th pick or whatever. I have a feeling there could be a legitimate chance that Claxton is like untouchable for anything realistic.
Sure.
So you gotta have other plans.
They'd
but
have
it's just
to really
one of them.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah. They'd have to love somebody at 6 or 7 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, Claxton's gonna get paid in the future. I don't know. Like, maybe that's a chance. See, like that's the type of play where, Nurkic is getting traded as part of that. But the thing is what does it accomplish? It gets you one of the top 3 defensive centers in the league that can protect the rim and switch. It also gets you a 3-and-D perimeter defending small forward. Mm-hmm. So it gives your defense a major boost, and you still have, you can still have future firsts, in that sort of scenario. You could still have all your future firsts except the one Chicago. You'd still have Ant, you'd still have Sharp for the future, and you'd be giving Dame a team that's probably in the playoffs. Now, it's probably not a contender either, unless Sharp pops, then it becomes a situation where you're just hoping that Sharp can pop. Or you need to go out and get another really high-level defender to get the defense good enough. But at least your defense would be competitive enough to probably make that team a playoff team. Yeah. And Claxton's still decently young. He can be a part of the future.
Yep. Jesse says, well, using that logic, you could just trade Nurkic and that pick to OG and then get a center elsewhere. I'm asking you, Jesse, please don't just say then get the next move elsewhere. Tell me what that next move is. And then I will say, okay, that's a good plan. Or no, that plan sucks because we'd still have major issues. Like, don't just say, then we could follow it up with any move, like what move do you want to follow that up with?
Yeah.
No, we didn't draft Nick Claxton, Priest.
Somebody said Nick Claxton is a tweener. Bro, I don't know how tall he is, but it literally doesn't matter because he protects the rim at an extremely high level and he switches. Like, that's the thing is, you guys are so focused on height that it doesn't matter if a dude plays center defensively better than 7-footers and protects the rim and blocks shots and can jump off the floor quick and all sorts of things. If he's not a 7-footer, it's a problem. Like, I don't get it. Claxton has been phenomenal defensively this year. He's one of the top 3 defensive bigs, and he can switch and protect the rim. Why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want that? And he's young, and he's not making a ton. That would be amazing. That'd be absolutely amazing. Shoot, like, if Brooklyn isn't super hell-bent on keeping him, I mean, I don't know how we do it, but if we got Wemby, I would love to add Claxton still and have Claxton and Wemby, and then all of a sudden your defense is borderline top 10 just because of those guys and Grant if you don't defend him on the ball. You know what I mean? Like, imagine that rim protection. Like, Claxton is the one center that I like as a potential target that has been, that you've talked about, Eric. I don't like Miles Turner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think giving up the assets it would take to get Miles Turner makes this team good enough, and then we don't have assets for other stuff.
It's a little better with his contract moving forward instead of being a free agent, but yeah.
Jesse says, if we get Claxton, how are we solving the small forward problem? I literally just
said that.
I literally just said.
Try to get Finney Smith too. Royce O'Neal you could try to get in that trade as well.
If you have Claxton, it then makes Nurkic a lot easier to trade because you don't have a hole at the center spot. Then you would look to trade Nurkic, and you just trade his salary with all the other firsts that you still have. You mess with the protection on the Chicago pick if you have to, if the player's good enough, and then you bring in your small forward that way.
Okay. We are not just saying future picks. I literally just said I would rather just draft players and keep them instead of doing any of these trades. But what I see the Blazers doing, if they're going to keep Ant and Sharp, is doing something like that to get Claxton, and then following it up with a Nurkic and, maybe just Nurkic, but including the 23rd pick, and then 3 future firsts. So it'd be Nurkic and 4 firsts, and just overpaying the heck out of getting OG. So you then have a starting lineup of Dame, Ant, OG, Grant, and Claxton with Sharp as your 6th man.
Go ahead.
Okay, and then you still have the MLE. You still have your 2nd-round pick. You still have a couple of other small contracts you can use. You still have the trade exception you could use. You have the MLE. So that's the kind of thing. If they're going to go all in without giving up Ant or Sharp, I think that's probably the best case scenario you can do.
Yeah, this dude said, don't say future picks, because that's the same thing that you're criticizing other people for saying. Bro, saying future first-round picks is not the same as just saying, then we go get a center. It's obvious what we're talking about when we say future, trading future first. We're talking about trading a 2026 first, a 2028 first, some combination of that, a 2030 first once free agency starts. It's obvious what we're talking about if we say future first. If you say, then just go get a center, it's not obvious, okay, who's the center? How are we getting him? What type of center are we getting? There's all sorts of different types of centers. Like, there's a difference there, bro. There's a difference, There's a difference. So, anyway, I mean, the reason that Eric is saying that is because so many people just act like it's super easy to replace Nurkic with a starting center for nothing. That's why he's asking specifically who. And
Tori and I literally give examples every freaking show of what we would do. Like we talk about trades all the freaking time. It's not like we're just saying, oh, we should do this, or we're not. And we don't lie to you and say we're going to trade for Nerlens Noel or Mo Bamba at the trade deadline either. We actually tell you what is actually realistic and stuff.
Yeah. We wouldn't even sign Nerlens Noel to a guaranteed contract. But we were interested in him on the trade market, according to sources. Anyway.
Sign and trades are going to be super difficult to bring in a player, especially if we re-sign Grant. Maybe if we didn't re-sign him, but you still have to match salary in a sign and trade. So maybe it could be a double sign and trade or something, but I don't see why Toronto would want Jeremy Grant with their forwards for Pirtle. So yeah, players like Pirtle are going to be really hard for the Blazers to acquire this summer because then it also hard caps you, and we would be very close to the hard cap line. And then we'd have to trade out several contracts. So I don't know.
DJ Vega says, if you have a really good 1-4, I don't think the center needs to be that good, but at least capable of starting. Okay, what makes you say that? Like,
okay, so Nurkic.
yeah. But
so what we've been saying all along, to just get
still,
a better defensive forwards, and we're fine at the center, right? That's literally what we say every stream.
The center position is very important defensively.
Especially if you have a switchable one. That's why like, Claxton would change the game for us, or Bam. Like if we could go for Bam. But
the only thing you could say is more important defensively is your best point of attack defender. Otherwise, center's probably the most important position defensively. And then when you run as much pick and roll as the Blazers do, if you have a guy that can't make a play out of a trap, you're extremely limited. So the center, like having a center that is good defensively and can make plays on the short roll out of the trap is extremely important for this team. Because this team can't rely on having 4 good perimeter defenders. So therefore, okay, if you have a mediocre center, it's fine because you're able to lock up on the perimeter. You don't have to rely on him protecting the rim as much, right? If you're a team that just moves the ball and, has guys just running off ball screens and that sort of thing, and utilizes their center offensively like the Golden State Warriors do, then it's not super important because that guy, his only responsibility is just going to be to dunk the ball when he's open on the interior and try and get offensive rebounds. When you rely more on pick and roll compared to a motion offense, which we do, then that center position's responsibilities on offense change. So I've heard a lot of people say like, oh, I don't think it matters that much who the center is, but I think having certain traits in our center matters, right? Like if they can do those 2 things, then I think everything else is just kind of gravy at that point if you do have a good 1-4, but those 2 traits are still important in my opinion. There are some other things that matter, of course, is you want a center that sets good screens on those pick and rolls, gets Dame and Ant and Sharp and Grant free. And obviously rebounding matters. That's why I'm not super high on Turner. That's kind of the other thing that matters is you gotta have a good rebounding center if you're going to start him next to Jeremy Grant. So it's just you're looking for certain traits. And that's why we ask, okay, what center? Because we want to see if people are coming up with center ideas that exhibit those traits or if it's a situation where they don't care about those traits at all and it doesn't even matter. That's why we're asking, okay, what center?
That's the problem. Most people are just like, we have to get rid of this person, and they don't really have a plan for doing so.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're just throwing those traits away. Like, those traits don't even matter. Or, they underestimate Nurkic's abilities on short rolls, and most of the time, they underestimate him defensively. Like, he's okay defensively. He's not great, but he's not bad, and a lot of people think that our defense is bad because of him. But our defense was even worse with Drew Eubanks, who's supposedly a great rim protector, so... Jesse says, why does Nas plus Lotto make more sense for Claxton than Nas plus multiple firsts? Because Nas plus Lotto is much more likely to get Claxton. I'm not sure Nas plus a couple future firsts. I don't think that's enough for Claxton. Like, it would probably take more than Nas plus Lotto pick, but it at least gets you in the door because that having the 5th or 6th pick is worth like future firsts.
And assuming the Blazers aren't in the tax at the time of the trade, they can match a much higher amount than they can if they are in the tax, so it would work for Nas straight up. I mean, if not, you could include a Keon, sure.
Yep, we got Spurs fan Gary in here. He says, Watford and a pick for Collins? What pick are you asking for? Is the 23rd pick good enough for you, Gary? I think your front office would value him more than that, but, if I could do 23 in Watford for Collins right now, I'd do it.
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Absolutely.
Gary says he'd do it. Okay, well, these teams need to get on the phone because
Gary was ahead of the curve on Julius Randle too.
Yeah.
Collins does fit into our trade exception this summer, so unlike Claxton's like 100,000 too much, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
That's the problem with Claxton is we do have to include a salary, but we could literally just trade picks for Collins if we wanted to, just like before the draft.
Yeah, Zach Collins today. He started like 7 for 11, so struggled shooting the ball to end the game. But 8 for 18, 2 for 5 from 3, 21 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Collins has been great since they traded Pirtle. In his last 10 in 28 minutes per game, Collins is averaging 19 points per game, shooting 55% from the field and 47% from 3, 85% from the free throw line, Eric. He's also averaging over 3 assists with that, over a block per game, and a steal. He's really freaking good.
Yeah.
He's okay. The way he's been playing lately, if he can play like this consistently over the next, season, then I think he sheds the bust label. Because the only reason he was a bust was because he was injured. If he's able to stay healthy and play like this, I mean, sure, there's guys behind him that are better, but that's the case in a lot of drafts. That doesn't make him a bust. Like, he would be, like, the way he's playing right now is the value that you would probably hope to get out of a normal 10th pick.
Mm.
It's at least, like, on par with what 10th picks normally provide. So, he's not a bust. Which is kind of crazy to say, but so confident.
I mean, it's just the players pick behind him, but yeah, that's not his fault.
Yeah, I mean, who's picked ahead of him? I feel like the 9th pick always sucks.
Was it Dennis Smith Jr. and Frank Ntilikina, Lauri Markkanen, who's finally
Lauri
turned the
Markkanen
corner?
was 7, yeah.
It was Markkanen, Dennis Smith Jr., Ntilikina, or
yeah. I mean, look at the 2 guys taken ahead of Zach Collins. It was Dennis Smith Jr. and Ntilikina. Now, yeah, Dennis Smith Jr., I mean, he's probably not, I don't know, like, he's been solid this year. But he hasn't been as good as Zach Collins has been lately. But yeah, Ntilikina was 8th, like Malik Monk was 11th, Luke Kennard was 12th. So, out of those 4 guys, I think Zach Collins is the best player right now. At least with how he's been playing lately. Now, can he keep it up consistently for an entire season on a better team? Like, who knows? But he has all the small traits that you would want in a big man. All, like, the little things that you would want in a big man. Like, he has an edge to him. Yeah. I mean, even then, that's the thing is, like, you look at 13 and 14, it's Donovan Mitchell and Bam Adebayo. But look at the 4 guys after that. Justin Jackson, Justin Patton, DJ Wilson, TJ Leaf. Three of the 4 guys before him, you probably wouldn't take over him. Jonathan Isaac, Frank Ntilikina, Dennis Smith Jr. Lauri Markkanen, obviously, you'd take. But look who got drafted at 4. That's Josh Jackson. He's a bust. Mm-hmm. That's a bust. Yeah. Frank Ntilikina at 8, that's a bust.
Casual DJ Vega doesn't even know who Justin Patton is. It's the second time Justin Patton's been mentioned on this.
I know.
Stream too. That's weird.
Dude, Gabe is a Creighton fan, although
okay.
He didn't even know like what seed they were when they were playing, so he's a Nebraska fan first and foremost, but he is a kind of probably like me with Washington with the Huskies, is how he is with Creighton. But I was talking to him about Creighton and he brought up Justin Patton the other day, so it's just becoming a solid stream of Justin Patton references, which is kind of crazy.
All good. Please, I want to hear why we even need to get our pick back from the Bulls. What would that accomplish?
Yeah. Like, it could help us accomplish things, but, I mean, it's not... You're going to have to give up something to get it back, so...
Max, what kind of freaking question is that? Would we rather start Cam or Sharp next season?
Come on, Max.
What are you talking about, Max?
Is the world round or flat, Max? Max, what do you think? Okay, Max, I like you. What do you think our answer is? If you've listened to me in the past month, you should know my answer to that question. Poor Max. Poor Max, just asking an innocent question, but yeah. Your laughing face emoji. Was that a troll question? Because, I mean, I can do a chat poll if you really want. We can see. Yeah, let's do a chat poll. Let's just see what the results are. Who would you rather start next year? Let's see how many CamFam members we have in here.
Well, all good might vote for. I don't know. I actually like them both.
All right, there's your chat poll. Chat.
Of course, People's Mix is gonna troll like the.
Yeah, answer with your Don't answer to troll. Answer with your real opinion. 58 votes, 26%, 25% of 60. So 15 of you freaking morons voted for Cam Reddish.
Internal canvas, I think a Bam at a bio trade would be very difficult to pull off. Smokey has a question. How did the Heat get Butler and Lowry in sign-in trades? I thought they did not have cap space. In both cases, they had to send out players to match or partially match in the case of Butler. But in the Lowry trade, they traded they had the big expiring contract of Goran Dragic to send out, along with Precious Achua that they gave for Lowry, and then got busted for tampering because that trade had been talked about before free agency began. With Jimmy Butler, I forget who they traded, but it ended up being part of the Whiteside trade. They ended up making it a 4 trade. So that's how we got Whiteside in the Jimmy Butler sign and trade, because Jimmy Butler wanted to go to Miami, but they didn't have enough cap space. So they sent Jimmy Butler. They ended up paying a first-round pick to the Clippers, which they used in the Paul George trade later to take Mo Harkless, so they didn't have to take his $10 million salary. And then I forgot who Philly ended up getting in that trade, but I don't think it was much.
23% of 93 votes. I am disappointed in 23% of you. We might have to reshuffle our mod lineup, although one of our mods would love that, so I don't want to... I need to punish him by keeping him a mod.
So, for those people who are saying, talking about unprotecting the pick next year, from what I've heard, Portland has a deal in place with Chicago to not unprotect it, but to make it be similar to the New York pick. So it would be like, and that's why they got so many seconds, or why they valued the seconds, was that they could make it like top 8 protected or something, or top 6 protected, or top 4 protected. And if it doesn't convey, it turns into 4 or 5 seconds for Chicago, but then it would just be a 1-year thing. And I don't think they would have to fully unprotect it, but I think they would be able to do something like that, or lower the protections on it. But I mean, if we're talking about unprotecting a pick, I mean, if we're talking about trading 3 future firsts, like what would be unprotecting that pick, like we're talking about probably a star player. So I think you just have to unprotect it in that play, in worst case scenario. So I
don't think the top of the draft next year is that great from what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, people always, this is the problem. When there's a star player in the draft like Wembanyama, and you can throw Scoot in there too, those drafts get hyped up for years. Like, what year is LeBron going to be drafted? That draft's going to be awesome. And so, like, it's very rare that just like an average draft, or like with a bunch of decent players, gets hyped up. So you have to have that like headliner of the draft class. And I just don't think next year has that. Now, if we're talking a couple years down the road with like, Cameron Boozer and players like that, maybe Bronny, but that's for other reasons. That's not necessarily because the draft is good. That's just to try and get LeBron. But I don't know. Like, it's still a long ways away. We haven't seen any of the high school seniors play, so we don't even know how they're going to do next year. You have guys like Brandon Miller, for example, who was a high recruit, but no one had him as like a top 4 or 5 pick coming into this draft. So like it always changes a lot. I mean, Zion wasn't even like considered the top pick heading into that college basketball season either. So a lot of things can still happen from now.
Yeah, I mean, things can happen, but, if you're talking about unprotecting it, no way you could unprotect it this year. Next year, it seems like the type of draft where maybe, if it's for the right star, obviously, you're not doing it for anything less than a star. If it's for the right star, it's a little bit more palatable. Some drafts are said to suck at the top, and then they suck at the top, but they have great players later on that makes the draft okay. The best example of that is 2013, when at the top of the draft, the debate was like, Alex Len? Nerlens Noel? And then I actually predicted...
Ben McLemore, too.
Yeah, Ben McLemore, and then I actually predicted in my mock draft before that draft that the Cavs would take Anthony Bennett, and that was a bit of a shock. But it was like, okay, it's these bigs, or you can get a guy that's like 6'8", can kind of shoot, kind of dribble, kind of strong, and is kind of athletic. I mean, I just felt like, oh, well, they'll talk themselves with the crap on the board. They'll talk themselves into him. I didn't think he should have been the number 1 overall pick, but
was that Oladipo too? Do you go?
Yeah, Oladipo, which like he was nice, but it was just like at the top of that draft, they were talking about, oh, this draft is so mediocre. Alex Len started getting whispers for the number 1 overall pick. That's how bad it was. So in that draft proved to be an okay draft because Giannis was drafted at 15 and like Rudy Gobert was drafted in the 20s. But obviously, if you're unprotecting a pick, you're not worried about guys in the 20s. You're worried about, okay, is the top of this draft like really, really good, and could this backfire really, really bad? Or
yeah, the only way I'm unprotecting a pick is if we make a trade that's like guaranteed that we're a playoff team at the very least, like no doubt, top 6. And that's going to be hard to feel confident about that regardless of the trade.
Yeah, I will say depending on the draft, if it's like we're at least confident that we won't be one of the worst 8 to 10 teams in the league. Then,
yeah, maybe the deadline.
You know what I mean?
Like
that's the thing. Because like otherwise, if we change the protections, we probably change it to top 8, right? So or top, whatever. So in that situation, I guess you could unprotect it if I don't know. I mean, I prefer to just change the protections on it, no matter what. Obviously, for obvious reasons, but let's take a look at the tank picture.
Why would we trade the Chicago or the Knicks pick to Chicago? Why would we get our picks back if we don't have a plan for it?
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, what's wrong with that idea?
I'm just asking, like, what? I'd rather just like I like a lot of the players in there. I would rather have
like it becomes a situation where it's like if there's a bunch of guards because Lively went earlier and a couple other guys went earlier, then that's the thing is it wouldn't hurt to say, okay, well, if we don't want to draft a guy here, would you trade us our pick back for the Knicks pick, and maybe we can get a little bit more out of that since they are just able to get a pick. Maybe they really like somebody at 23. Like, wouldn't hurt to have that talk, and then you could trade for future first with protections. It's just like if you're getting to the point where you're trading for future first, it's probably for nothing short of like legitimate star. Some people say Mikal Bridges, but other than that, if you're trading for first for Embiid, Philadelphia has the leverage to say, all your future first should be unprotected anyway, because we're giving you Joel Embiid. Yeah. And then at that point, getting the Chicago pick doesn't really matter. Because you're trading unprotected first anyway, so,
But, like, so what, you want to trade future first, Jesse, for, like, Larry Nance and Robert Covington and stuff? Like, those kind of trades? Isn't that what got us into this?
Yeah. Yeah.
DJ Vega asked if we would trade Scoot for Mikal.
Yes.
Yeah, I probably would too. but the problem is we still have to match salary. So, um, like if they allow us to sign him and then not play in summer league, I guess, and then um,
At that point, you overpay as part of the trade for like if they're willing to do Mikhail straight up for Scoot, then you're just like, okay, we got match salary. Then you trade Nurkic, and you're willing to overpay for Claxton.
Yep.
Right, because you need a center to replace him, and it's like you're using Nurkic's matching salary, and so then it's like Nurkic, Nas, and that way you keep Ant, and you get the center backup that's a perfect fit. Like, if you have Mikhail and Claxton, that could be a borderline contender because those guys are so freaking amazing defensively.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, because if it's a borderline top 10 defense, this team's probably a borderline contender. The problem is our defense is absolutely terrible. So, RGV Vid says Bridges is an all-star next season. Not sure Brooklyn wants to move him at all. I mean, that absolutely could be the case. You're 100% right.
The question was just if they offered Mikhail for the number 2 pick, would we?
Yeah. But
yeah, I think you do. I completely agree. Even if you have to give up a little more than you want, as long as you can keep certain players, because I'll tell you what, like having either an OG, I'm not. Theoretically, I really like OG, but I mean, Mikhail just between his availability, never missing games, and just his ability now he's shown to take over offensively. So I put him ahead of OG, but those are the kind of players we need at the small forward position if we want to maximize the Dame Ant backcourt. And if we could do so without giving up Sharp too, so we still have his potential, and then eventually when that question becomes where we have to choose one or the other, we could then pivot for that and trade one of them, but for whatever holes we need to fill elsewhere. But getting 2 defensive front court players like Mikhail and Claxton would absolutely change the game.
Smokey says, what is your ideal offseason without Wemby and you think could actually happen? I mean, we've talked about that, but I will also have an offseason video. I will have an off-season video based around that premise. So just wait for that. Or rewind in the stream and if you just joined us, but we've talked about probably the best thing to do with the lotto pick if it doesn't move up, which is Nicholas Claxton is kind of the guy that I'm looking at right now, and then makes it easier to package Nurk and picks for a small forward, and Claxton helps your defense because he's phenomenal defensively. Beyond that, I don't know. Like, there's a bunch of different ways they could go, and all of them might or might not be realistic. I don't know.
Jesse, so would hitting on the Knicks pick and having that player have trade value, and also just because we owe the Chicago pick, like I just mentioned prior to making that comment towards you, we could easily free up future picks with Chicago. We already have deals in place. Cronin even said he talks to them every time there's a possibility of a trade, that just to make sure. And so we can easily free up a future pick if you want or need one in a trade. So like, I don't see a reason why doing it just for the sake of doing it. If we're going to do it because there's someone we need those picks for, then I'm all for that. I just wouldn't do it, in my opinion, unless it's for a specific reason.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing. That we're trying to teach you guys to think long term, where everything should be for a follow up. So I get freeing up assets and the thought of that, but if we're able to make it so that our first next year to Chicago is only owed for that year, and maybe it's top 8 protected, and then it turns into seconds, then it doesn't matter to trade the Knicks pick, because if you're trading firsts, I mean, a team probably values our first owed to Chicago and the Knicks pick that we have this year probably the same, so you don't have to do that. And if you're not making that big splash, then you can just wait. You can take somebody with that Knicks pick and still open up future firsts. Like, in multiple scenarios, the Knicks pick and the first owed in 2024 to Chicago kind of become the same asset, and that's because there is ways to open up future firsts. So if you open up future first, it doesn't really matter which first you have unless you're, drafting someone, which in a deep draft, you would probably rather have bring a guy in now that could hopefully help in the Dame timeline. Maybe a guy that could solve a problem with this roster at 23, like a Derek Lively, who could come in and probably be the backup center right away, in my opinion, much like Walker Kessler has come in with a similar valued pick and been a really good big for the Jazz this year. I wouldn't just give up on that possibility. So that's where I'd wait. Anyway, let's look at Tankathon. Let's look at tankathon.com. Tank picture is looking great, by the way. Eric's keyboard is sounding great, by the way. Your keyboard's a lot quieter than mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have those quiet buttons.
Yeah, I don't. So this is the tank picture. I like that the tank is still up there. Orlando won today. Portland lost. Look at that. That's absolutely beautiful. Eric, if we had just lost to them, we would be a game and a half.
Clearer
with fifth best odds.
Yep.
But I told you guys. I told you. Orlando, when healthy, is not a bad team. They are... I honestly think when healthy, they're probably... I'm sure there's a stat on this, but they feel like close to being a 500 team. Mm-hmm. They've won 3 in a row. They beat the Nets, the Knicks, and the Wizards. The Wizards aren't that good, but they beat the Nets by 13 today. And McHale had 44. Orlando still won. They got guys that can score. They got guys, at least guards, that can play defense. Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, good defensive pieces. Jalen Suggs had a good game today. Orlando has won 4 out of 5. They beat the Clippers on March 18th, right? They barely lost to the Lakers. This is not the normal tanking team we're trying to catch. This is a team that is better. Maybe they pull the plug at some point, but this team is competitive. I expect them to get a couple more wins this season. Detroit, Washington, and then, they just beat Brooklyn. Miami last day of the season. Is Miami playing for anything? Who knows? I could see the Magic going 500 the rest of the way and winning 4 of these games. It could be a situation where we're, or I guess they got 7 games left. I could see them getting 2 or 3 more wins.
Reese says they're 30-27 in the last 57 games.
Yeah. They had this big losing streak, and they had health issues for a big part of that.
Can they get 10th? Can they make the play-in?
If we look at it, so who's in play-in? It would be Chicago at 36 and 38. They are 4.5 games behind them with 7 to go. I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah.
I wish it was, but I don't think it is. Because Chicago's 10th right now. If Chicago hadn't won 2 straight and only had 34 wins right now, then absolutely. But Chicago has won 7 of their last 10. But at this point, Eric, knock on wood, if I had to bet on who has 5th best odds, I'd bet on Portland.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because it seemed kind of out of reach after beating them, but at this point, we're there.
Yeah.
We play tomorrow, second night of a back-to-back against the Pelicans. We lose, we're tied.
Yep. And here's the deal. Lose out, we're guaranteed at least a tie for 5th, and that's if Orlando doesn't win another game. So, which they will. So we lose out, we can maybe even afford to win that San Antonio game. Yep. So yeah, we're, as long as they don't mess it up, we are pretty much guaranteed now that they haven't officially said it, but Chris Haynes came out and said that they were leaning towards shutting Dame down for the rest of the season. So, yeah, do got to watch out for the couple teams behind us, as Rahi says. But like I said, as long as we take care of our business and lose every game, it doesn't matter.
Yep. Indiana, the rest of their schedule, they got Dallas, who's in shambles. Milwaukee, OKC, Cleveland, New York twice, and Detroit.
Max, can you please explain to me why you see mock drafts having us take GG at 13? How are we getting the 13th pick? Are you doing this again for the second straight stream?
Who said that?
Are you talking about 23rd again, just like last time when you just kept saying 13? Max.
Oh, yeah, Max is on the liquid courage today. Here's the rest of the schedule for the Wizards. Houston, last game of the year. Knicks, Orlando. Yeah, you do got Orlando versus Washington. So, if Orlando wins that game, that'd be great. But shoot, Orlando wins that game and they're tied with Washington, and now they're equal. So this could become a situation where, I don't know, like we're focused on Orlando, but Orlando could end up doing better than Indiana and Washington at this point. We still have to root for Indiana and Washington to win games. Washington, it feels like, is tanking. They're 2-8 in their last 10, just like Portland.
Jesse, man, please stop being like this. We gave examples of why. High lottery pick. We end up with like the 4th to 6th pick. Maybe they value that over a Claxton. We never said that he was available or would be available. I also freaking told you twice in this stream that I would prefer to keep Nurkic and draft players and not make a big move. But you keep going on about something like like just give it a rest, man. Like I just don't understand. And then you get mad when we interact with you, when you constantly spam chat and constantly ask us questions and stuff like that. Just give it a rest, dude.
I legitimately said it's very possible that Claxton isn't really gettable and he's untouchable for anything reasonable. Yeah, that's very, very possible. Shoot, that's maybe the most likely scenario. But, here's what I've always said, too. Before we do this Tankathon sim. If you have a bunch of plans where it's like, okay, logically, this might have a chance, but it's probably unlikely. But if you have a bunch of plans like that, if you have 10 things that are unlikely, it's more likely that one of them is going to happen than if you only have one thing that's unlikely. And this kind of goes back to the math debate we had last post-game stream, but you just increase your odds of at least having a viable path to something good if you have 10 possible paths compared to one. So
and so Claxton and Collins are just two guys that have a contract that's gettable for the Blazers without giving up Sharp and without giving up, Ant and Nurkic and that kind of stuff. So the reason why we gravitate towards those kind of trades is because if we're going to overpay for a player, I mean, I don't know, is there many players in the league, like let's just say we got 4th, are there many players in the league that the other team would turn down the 4th pick for outside of like stars, because Claxton's not like a star or anything. So like, and then like the Nets could be worried about having to pay him the next year or whatever. But yeah, so we're not saying it's going to happen or it's realistic or anything. That's just something that I would look into. But I'm also fine just keeping the pick and drafting. I said that was my, like, for the record, I'm fine with that. And I would, that's the path I would choose.
Yeah. It's just frustrating because no trade idea is guaranteed, but if it's not something that's guaranteed to happen, there's always at least one person that's like, why would the other team do that? I mean, there's always a chance that the other team wouldn't do it for various reasons, and there's always the chance, with at least what we bring up, normally there's a chance that they would do it for reasons that we're willing to provide. It's just like, okay, well, they either feel like this for this reason or they feel like that for that reason. So we try and explain the reasoning, but it's never like where we explain like, oh yeah, Claxton could maybe be an option with the 6th pick if we have it. It's saying that isn't saying they would trade him for the 6th pick or, they might want the 6th pick because they like somebody there. So yeah, I am careful with how I phrase trade talk because our whole goal here is to get the viewer base thinking about trades and stuff on a deeper level than a lot of the garbage we see out there. So that's why I am careful about the way I try and phrase trade ideas, trade talk, because I don't want to make it sound like, oh yeah, this is something we could do when it's completely questionable.
Janot asks, are you doing 2nd Simon's Little 2 future first and a 2nd for Siakam?
The second pick in the draft, Simon's little 2 firsts.
That doesn't even match salary wise, even if we did do all that.
How much is Siakam making?
30. I think it's 35 to 37 next year, something like that.
That would match.
Simons makes what, like 23, 24.
24. Little makes. It'd be borderline.
Be close.
It might.
But anyways, what I heard at the deadline was the Toronto Raptors, when we called about Siakam, said, don't waste our time unless you are willing to include all of these as a starting point. And that's Anthony, Shaedon Sharpe, Nasir Little, and 3 unprotected first. They said, don't even waste our time unless we're willing to part with all of those as a bare minimum. So I just look at Toronto as like that's stupid, and it's not even worth even discussing trades for Siakam, you know?
Yeah,
because yeah,
he doesn't no. He's not like the perfect type of player. Like I'd probably rather have Mikal at this point than Siakam. And it's not because Mikal's a better player. Siakam just overall is the better player, but Mikal would be better for what we need. Would be better for this team. Because he's a better perimeter defender and a better 3-point shooter. That's the main 2 traits we need. Now, how you get the team really good is by getting a guy that excels in both those traits, but then can also do other things. And that's what Mikal is looking like right now.
And if you don't want to believe that, that's fine. But, I mean, we know for a fact they turned down the 7th pick. And they wanted more than the 7th pick for OG. So they could have just had, like, Josh Hart in the 7th pick. We probably would have done that. But they said they were holding out for another unprotected first on top of Josh Hart and the 7th pick. So we could be sitting here talking about Sharpe on Toronto after we traded him, and we have OG on our team. He was probably hurt half the year, and we're probably not that much better, and we have less of a future. So sometimes that's why I've said all along that I'm fine with going the young route and just hoping that Dame stays good enough long enough to see that through, because I think we're going to regret doing whatever kind of trade we do.
Yep. Anyway, Murray, it's like 60 to 61%. I figured out how to do the math. I am not interested in having more of a math debate right now.
Let's not do that.
So, but yes,
It doesn't even matter because I had the wrong percentage on the 7th pick anyway, so it ended up not mattering. But
it's just the odds of it not happening, since you have 2 chances, is the odds of it not happening multiplied by the odds of it not happening, because there's 2 chances at one event occurring.
Wild Thing Music asks, is thinking about paying out incentives on $1 million contracts as much as it is getting draft positions. I guess it depends on the organization. I think some organizations would do that, but in terms of player incentives and things like that, I'm pretty sure that most organizations wouldn't, or most players wouldn't, allow them to sit them without an injury if they had an incentive that they would for sure get if they played. So I don't think that's the case with any player on the Blazers this year missing out on incentive bonuses due to that. Could be wrong, but not that I know of. I don't think there's anyone with incentives that they would still be able to earn this season.
Yep. And if you're coming in here shouting trade Dame, don't waste your freaking breath, because it's not a conversation. Okay? Then you're wasting your time if that's what you're saying. Don't waste your finger stamina. Okay? Alright. Tankathon time. Time to simulate this thing. Still same odds as last year, but looking more and more like we could have a 42% chance. I don't even want to say the numbers until we actually have them. All right. But if we lose tomorrow, then it'll be even odds.
9.8 and 9.7.
Yeah. So That's the tanking picture. Man, fifth... Dude, like Okay, it's... Let me just say this before we say it like this. Like, last year it was like, oh my goodness, we have such high odds being sixth. Like, if we can move up, that'd be amazing. And we were like, so like, oh my goodness, we could have a top 4 pick. And now the odds might be higher, and the number 1 pick is like a generational dude, but it doesn't feel like the same level of excitement because we got screwed last year.
Right. But did we get screwed?
I mean, it depends. Okay. It depends on your definition of screwed. Like, could you be likely to get screwed if you think about it?
Yeah.
Like, there's an 80% chance that you run into a mountain lion on this trail and have to fight it, right? If you run into the mountain lion on a hiking trail and there is an 80% chance of it happening, if you run into a mountain lion, are you still screwed? That's my philosophical question.
I'm just saying, if we come out of 2 drafts with Sharp and Wemby, I don't think we got screwed in either draft.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
okay, yeah. I thought you were just talking about probability again.
No.
So I wanted to get philosophical.
No,
we didn't get screwed.
I'm saying if we would have moved up to 3 and taken Jabari Smith,
maybe we took
better off right now? I mean, we might be. Maybe Jabari's better.
That's your guy too. So this is amazing. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you frame it that way, then I mean.
Maybe we do luck out.
If Sharp didn't have these 2 games, would we be saying this? It's like 2 games completely changes the conversation. Which I'm not saying it shouldn't,
we've thought since the time he drafted that he has the potential to maybe be one of the top players in the draft.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it's 3 games. Thanks, chat. Yeah.
What did he have 3 games ago?
It's at 24, 24, 29 is last.
Oh, okay. It was 3 games. Okay, chat. My bad. I shorted him a game. Yeah, 3 games. Oh, he should have been the number 1 pick. I'm just in the, if you don't take into account that we could have drafted the best player of the draft is 7, but,
just blessing in disguise, silver lining, right?
See, but like this year, there's no Shaden Sharp at 6 or 7. It's guys there's no
you never know.
I don't think there's anyone with that level of mystery plus upside at 7. Like it's like Jarris Walker is probably who we're taking, right? Completely different. Not saying he'd be a bad pick. It's just completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different. Ricky Henderson, you can't even keep his age right. Saying a dude has never won when he's made it to the conference finals is just stupid. Anyway, we need to make a rule saying no trade Dame talk. Just that's the one opinion you can't have.
No, you can have it. Feel free to express it. Just don't tell others that we should be talking about Dame trades.
No, but that's the thing is, like, all the people that want to trade Dame, they always come at it so aggressively. It's not like, I think they should trade Dame for this reason. It's always like this. I'll read off this dude's comment. He says, trading Dame is smart now. All caps. Trading Dame is smart now. That's called understanding value and assets. You can't run a team by sympathy. Like, basically, if you don't want to trade Dame, you don't understand value and assets. You know what I mean? Like, everybody that comes in here wanting to trade Dame always comes in it so freaking aggressively and is so annoying about it. He says at the end of the comment, Eric, I didn't even read the rest of the comment. The end of the comment says, if you aren't willing to trade Dame, you aren't really smart with anything you say. That's how they always come at it. That's how it always is. Which, that's basically an insult. If you don't have my opinion, you're not smart. That's an insult. And we have a no insult rule. So in that case, we can technically, lay down the squeaky band hammer that I'm going to buy for breaking the rule of insulting people. But yeah, why do they always come at it so aggressively? That's part of why it is so annoying. Is everybody that wants to trade Dame, not everybody, but most people that want to trade Dame are so freaking aggressive about it. It's like, chill, man. Anyway. So. Let's just tankathon this thing. Whoops, that's my stream page. There, that's my tankathon.
Yeah, as for A-Tube, how's Cam Thomas been lately? Since you created a new account and now...
Oh, you're a freaking... Why do you...
See? There, just proving your point.
Like, okay. Why... What is with you people that create burners? But then with those burners, you basically just go into stream chats, and your words are the equivalent of, "Hey, I'm dumb, give me attention." Like, if I made multiple burners to troll Eric, I would get sophisticated with it for the fun of it, you know? Like, I would at least have some fun with it. We used to have really sophisticated trolls, especially in the first year we ever did this. We used to have some masterful trolls. Yep. They were a master of their craft, okay? Now, we get people like freaking A is for A-Tube that comes in here and says, "Cam Thomas greater than Dame. Blazers Uprise will never understand it." Like, it's not even funny. Like, if you're gonna troll us, at least make it funny. At least be better, okay? It's not like we are completely against trolling us. Our mods do it all the time. Our mods are the people that did it really well year one. Why do you think they're mods? Because I like their trolling, okay? So if you're gonna come in here and troll, at least make it entertaining.
No, Joshua, Dame will not be making $40 million when he's 40 because there's an over 38 rule in the NBA, and the salary is greatly reduced and doesn't count towards the cap after that age. So no, he will not.
Yep. Mike says trolling is a lost art. Former troll. Mike, I appreciate your understanding of the art form that is trolling. Because this is the crap we get. Cam Thomas, 37.5% from 3. Dame, 37.1% from 3. They'll never understand it. That's the type of crap we get. It's just like, so disappointing. I just shout out to those of you who used to troll us and used to do much better than this guy. I appreciate what you did for this community. And I appreciate people acting normal too. It's just, if you're going to do it better. Don't be so lame about it, okay? Embrace it if you're going to do it. Anyway, time for Tankathon, Eric. Let's simulate this thing and have our fingers crossed for our savior, Victor Wembanyama. At 13, OKC. At 12, Pelicans via the Lakers, which is nice to see. At 11, Orlando via Chicago. At 10, Dallas. They keep their pick because it's top 10 protected, and they suck with Kyrie.
They completely need to keep sucking.
Off. Yeah.
If I'm pulling the tank too.
I called their Western Conference Finals as a fluke last year.
Yeah, you called them trading for Kyrie and trading all their good players.
Well, I did call the Kyrie trade maybe making them worse. So
yeah,
but you did too. We did.
They were 29 and 25 before that trade. So
yeah.
Well, they were in like 5th or 6th and well above 500.
Not every all-in move is smart. I'm kind of sad that the Captain Crunch ad went away. Oh, it's over here now on the left. I want some cereal. At 9, you have Utah. So far, so good for the Portland Trailblazers. At 8, Indiana, which means that... Who moved up? Who's at 8? Because Washington and Indiana... Oh, it's Washington.
Washington.
Yeah. Okay. Washington moves up into the top 4. At 7...
Congrats to them.
Your Portland Trailblazers. At 6, San Antonio. So we need to move up to the Magic pick.
Yep.
Okay, we need to move. Let's see where the magic pick is. At 5, Detroit. At 4, Charlotte.
What are the chances we were 7th 2 years in a row?
Oh, God.
Gosh.
Best pick in the draft. At 3, Houston. So it's either Washington or Orlando. At 2, Orlando, and at 1, Washington. Washington gets Wemby to pair him with Porzingis, which is kind of funny. And Orlando gets the second pick.
Ish says, I probably won't even be able to watch the draft lottery. I'll be too nervous. Yeah, if you watched that stream last year, I was kind of like watching it between my fingers, like.
Yeah, and then you were like a second ahead, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I heard your reaction before I saw the pick. I just heard, "Oh no!" much more vibrant than that. I don't have the vocal cords to reenact your vocal range.
Well, it's so much nicer having the 5th pick because, I mean, you could still move down 2 spots.
Yeah, imagine we still end up 7th.
Yeah, I mean, it's still possible, but like, I don't know. It's just, I think it's still the greatest percentage chance of being the 7th pick, just like last year. But I don't know.
Do you want the percentages on what each pick would be if we're 5th best odds?
Sure.
I tweeted them earlier. If you don't follow me on Twitter. Link in the description. What are you doing? Here's the odds. If the Blazers end up with fifth best odds, they have a 10.5% chance of getting the first pick, the second pick, and the 4th pick. They somehow have a 10.6% chance of getting the 3rd pick. So basically even 10.5% chance of getting 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They have a 2.2% chance of remaining at 5. So if they have 5th best odds, it's getting 5th. The 5th pick actually is extremely unlikely because that would mean no teams, including the Blazers, would move up into the top 4. Like the top 4 would have to stay the top 4 in that scenario. So that's why it's only a 2.2% chance at 5th best odds. It would have to go
absolutely chalk till
yeah.
The bottom 4 teams.
Yep. So 2.2% chance at the 5th pick. 19.6% chance at the 6th pick, 26.7% chance at the 7th pick. So that's still our most likely pick.
Yeah. Yep.
But the lower odds, obviously, at only 26.7%. We would have an 8.7% chance at the 8th pick and a 0.6% chance at the 9th pick. Imagine we had higher odds and fell to 8th. Fell a pick lower. Here's the thing. I don't really care if they're like 6th, 7th, 8th. I in this draft, I don't think there's much of a difference. In last year's draft, getting Sharp, I think there was a difference. Obviously, there could be a guy taking at 7. That's so phenomenal. You know what I mean? Like, I just thought like with Mathurin and Sharp at 6 or 7, like those guys were head and shoulders above like Dyson Daniels. I don't know if I thought so at the time, but it's pretty obvious now. I should have thought so at the time. I'll go back to my big board.
We didn't know Keegan was going to go up to 4.
Yeah.
With Ivy, it would be 4, and then there was clear-cut top 3, and then, 5th through 7th. I think this time at last year, we were assuming Sharp was going to rise up draft boards and maybe be in the top 3 or 4. He'd be the only one that has a chance of getting up there. We didn't expect Keegan to be that guy, but...
Yeah. And I was saying at the time, like, Keegan's been nice as a rookie, but my opinion on him being taken with 4 has not changed. And I feel like the way this year is playing out, it's kind of showing why. Like, he's nice, but at this point, who would you rather have, Mathurin or him? You'd rather have Mathurin. I feel like most people would say that. Like, Mathurin has been better this year. Now, you can make the argument that Mathurin isn't efficient enough and playing for a bad team or this or that, but, I mean, upside and production this year, like, it'd be hard to go with Keegan Murray if you asked him or Mathurin, right? Him or Sharp. He's been better than Sharp this year, but you take the upside. Like, I'm glad we have Sharp and not Keegan Murray. Like, with Keegan Murray, maybe we make the play in this year, Eric. Like, how does our future change? We have a nice role player, but...
I mean, he's been pretty good.
He's been good, but he doesn't have Sharp's upside.
Yeah.
And this is like one opportunity.
He's already shooting 40+ from 3, though, his rookie year. That's pretty good.
But he don't got Sharp's upside, and this is... The draft is the easiest way to get guys with high upside. because it's really hard to acquire them otherwise. A high upside guy that you have confidence in their upside panning out or having a chance to pan out. The only way you can get high upside normally via like a trade or free agency is if you trade for a guy that sucked for 3 years.
That's an important distinction, though, because you need that confidence that he's going to come close to that upside.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, G.J. Jackson would be the first pick, right?
Yeah. I don't really like him, by the way.
But, I mean, he's got just as high upside as almost anyone outside the top 2 picks, probably.
Oh, yeah. There's some times where it's like, yeah, you're not, exactly as you said, not super confident in that upside panning out. Mm-hmm. And I have reasons to be confident for that upside not panning out. But that is kind of the Shaden Sharp of this year's draft. He's just regarded more lowly because he really struggled in college this year.
Do you think that's a coincidence, DJ Vega, that Josh Hart said we weren't going to be tanking for Wemby, and now that's exactly what we're doing, and we just happen to start talking about trading him around the time he says that? You think maybe front office is like, get this guy out of here. He doesn't want to tank for Wemby.
Yeah. Oh, I was higher on Dyson Daniels than I thought. Yeah. I was higher on him. And Johnny Davis, I forgot that me and you both like Johnny Davis. I don't know what the hell happened to him. Yeah, once we got Shaden Sharp, I was like, yes, that's the perfect pick. It's funny how once you have the guy, it changes.
I wasn't like that at first because I didn't know if we were trading it or not. So it was hard to like get excited like that about it. But once I heard that, we were ecstatic when we did that. Yeah.
I'm looking back on my big board. I had Keegan Murray at 11. I shouldn't have been that high on Dyson Daniels. Because I don't know why I was that high on Dyson Daniels and not Keegan Murray, because I could use the same argument against both of them. But I had Keegan Murray as 11 below Jalen Duren, Mathurin, Sharp. The one guy that's very questionable is Ousmane Dieng, but he could still become something. And then Johnny Davis obviously hasn't panned out, but yeah, this big board was interesting.
Yeah, I was not as high on Dyson.
This is maybe my worst draft big board of all time. Like I struggled. And I paid more attention to prospects last year than any other year, but I struggled with coming to conclusions with so many different guys in last year's draft.
We both had Walker Kessler way down in the second round.
Yeah. Yeah, way too low.
The reason why I got excited for the Jabari Walker pick was because I didn't think the Blazers would take like I thought for sure they were just gonna take like a foreign guy or stash it.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
At one point I moved Jalen Williams up to like 13, 14, 12 range, and then I was like, that's too high. Everybody else has him lower. I try not to do that, but it's tough. I moved him down to 20. I had a good feeling about him. Oh, you know what it was? Box and One? Mm-hmm. They had like some advanced metrics where it was like, every player with this metric profile as Jalen Williams has been an absolute bust.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll move him down a couple rungs. I don't know, but
I call that the Reese.
Yeah. I'm not making that mistake again,
Just kidding, Reese.
I'm not making that mistake again. Who was your top 10 last year, Tori? Chet, Paolo, Jabari, Jaden Ivey, Dyson Daniels, Johnny Davis, Shaden Sharp, Ousmane Dieng, Benedict Mathurin, Jalen Duren. As I said, probably my worst top 10.
Can you look at previous ones on
Fanspo? If you made an account, yeah, and saved it.
Yeah. How do you look at the previous ones?
Just go to your profile.
All I see is this year's my profile.
What's your username?
I think I found it. All right. I got it.
What's your? I should throw this on the screen.
All right, I had Jabari, Paulo, Chet, Jaden Ivey, Matherin 5, Keegan Murray 6, Johnny Davis 7, Sharp 8, Duran 9, and Malachi Branham 10. So,
Yeah, we did. You want to look at our mock draft from last year?
and then I had Sohan 11, AJ Griffin 12, Agbaji 13. I had Dyson Daniels down at 16.
I had Agbaji down at like 28. We had the Nuggets. The Nuggets getting Jalen Williams. That would have sucked.
Yeah, Brandon got drafted. He went 20th to the Spurs.
Do you want... Okay,
Has
to
had
end
some
this...
good moments and bad moments.
To end this, do you want to do a mock draft? We haven't done one yet. I'm not ready for the second round, but do you want to just run through it quickly? I mean, we could go into the second round for the hell of it because we have the second round pick and just breeze through it.
I don't know if we have... Or how about, do you want to do that on live tomorrow? We don't really have anything to talk about. Or do you want to do it now?
I kind of want a quicker live tomorrow since we're going live tomorrow night anyway. So,
yeah.
And I have things to do. So let's just do it now. Let's, how many picks would you like to make? Let's just do a full draft. Let's just do new custom order. You want to resim this and that's our order? We'll see if we get lucky.
Sure.
Although I kind of want us to get lucky because it's obviously going to mean too much. Okay, there's 7. Dallas at 3. Let's not even mess with the order. Screw having Dallas at 3. I don't like that. NBA. All right.
So we're gonna alternate.
Yeah, we'll alternate.
You're just doing order without anyone moving.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just do it like that. Let me make sure the capture is good enough.
Let's just do round 1. I feel like round 2 would be 2.
We could do it up to our second round pick maybe if you want. If Chad wants us to. If not, that's fine. I don't really care.
All right, and who's doing what?
I can flip a coin for evens or odds. All right. Heads for me is evens. Tails, so I'm odds.
Mock Draft Simulator. You can play along on fanspo.com.
Yeah. All right, so I'm odds. So Wemby, obviously, for Detroit, and then at 2 with Houston. Who you going?
Hold on just a second. Let me
get it set up. Let me move the little Blazers tank down here.
I hope. Because, Fanspo always has like prospects that are missing, so I'm hoping I'm not missing anyone big. All right, so who'd you take?
I took Wemby.
Really? Damn it! I was going to take him at 2. All right.
Houston's front office is so bad that might be their reaction.
Yeah, I think Scoot's obviously the second pick here.
Okay. Scoot.
I would not trust Brandon Miller going to the locker room.
Yeah. In the Spurs at 3, I feel like they would be a little shy in regards to the Brandon Miller situation. Honestly, I regard Brandon Miller and Amen Thompson similarly. I think Brandon Miller is higher floor, safer pick. Still solid upside, but I think Amen Thompson has a higher upside. I'm actually going to go with Amen Thompson for the Spurs at 3.
Cool.
For Charlotte.
That's the other second. That's probably just as bad. I do feel like, so if I'm Charlotte, that, I mean, the Thompson twins are just too similar in style to LaMelo.
Yeah.
Best case scenario. So I'm going to him up for sure floor spacer. So I'm taking Brandon Miller
All right, Brandon Miller at
to
4 with
replace Gordon Hayward.
at 5. Oh wow. Orlando, which the Thompson twins don't really make sense for Orlando. When you got Franz and Paulo, I mean, you could hypothetically have like an all 6'7", 6'8" lineup. You know, like one of the Thompson twins is your point guard. You just got like 3-point forwards. It could literally be what the Raptors did, but even harder.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Jarris Walker would make a ton of sense here. He's not the typical like super high upside guy that I'd like to swing for here, but I think he's a really good fit because I think he could be small ball 5 with both those guys at the 3 and 4, or you could even go big and play, Wagner, Franz Wagner, Banchero, Walker 2 through 4 as well. So I'm also gonna make it interesting to see who you take at 6 here for Portland. I'm gonna take.
Oh, so you're just trying to screw Portland?
Yes, screw Portland. I'm taking Jarris Walker there at 5. I like his fit in Orlando better than pretty much any of the other prospects here.
I mean, obviously, if I'm Portland, I am looking to trade.
Why
this
is this
right
Washington broken? Okay.
It must have been before today. Or Fanspo's always behind.
Yeah, but when was... Oh, yeah, it was. Okay, there, we traded it. Nice. I like that feature. Okay, Portland's at 6.
All right. I'm obviously looking to move the pick right now if I am Portland. But sticking to taking the best fit, or not best fit, but the best player available, I don't see how after the top 5 picks you can pass up on one of the Thompson twins. So I'm just taking the Thompson, Oster, and hoping like hell he's an elite defender and can fix some of our problems at the point of attack.
Yep, I love that pick here. I thought that was for sure the pick here. So I agree. Good job, GM Eric. Okay, at 7, it's Washington, which they need a. I mean, they need a point guard. So you could maybe go Anthony Black. Nick Smith had ups and downs, was injured. I don't know how much of a pure point guard he is. He feels kind of duplicative with Bradley Beal for lack of creation reasons. Not for like the Blazers backcourt, because Dame can create better than both. For others, Dame's more of a point guard. I like Anthony Black's upside. So I'm just at this point I'd just go with Anthony Black. Positionally versatile, could be their point guard, could be their small forward. I don't know, but Washington is a mess. So there we go. Take him off the board for you.
All right. You took my 21st player on my draft.
Really?
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say I know you don't like him, but dang.
All right, so now I'm the Pacers.
Yes, you're the Pacers now.
They could draft Benedict Matherin's clone.
Yeah. Are you following along with this mock draft in your own browser?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I hate to pass up on best player available. I feel like this player would be a great fit with what they have so far, especially Halliburton. So I'm taking Taylor Hendricks here.
Hendricks at 8.
Yep. If it was any other team, I'm taking Cam Whitmore because, but like I said, I feel like he's the exact same as Benedict Mathurin. So
I already know what I'm gonna do here, and it's gonna be I could go with Grady.
Who do they have? Who's the ninth pick?
Orlando
Again. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so they just took Jarris Walker, right? The one thing they really need is like a pure shooter to pair with their core. And I don't know. Grady Dick could be that guy.
Should have imported a thing because
yeah,
the Bulls are now at 11th.
I mean, it could change before the end of the season, so whatever. Whatever.
Yeah.
But if I'm here, I'm taking a guy who's probably going to be there at 11. Like, this is actually going to be a really bold pick. But I'm actually going to take Jordan Hawkins. I like Jordan Hawkins a lot. He just dominated my Gonzaga Bulldogs. I think he's a late lotto pick, probably, but I love his fit in Orlando.
So you didn't want to take one of the Thompson twins for them, but
I didn't know how the Thompson twins would fit as like that third core piece next to Franz and Banchero. I felt like that was a little too much in terms of ball dominance. So added probably a 3-and-D guy with maybe some secondary passing upside. Like I like Jarris's fit there. And then I really like Jordan Hawkins.
At 10, then I'm taking Cam Whitmore for Toronto. Feel like that'd be a good place for him to develop his skill set, and yeah.
Cam Whitmore, I like that.
Maybe replace Gary Trent Jr.
11, we got the Jazz. And they have like a bunch of pieces, but I don't know who's staying there or who they consider a part of their core. Like, they should probably go for a guard here. Probably. They could go for a point or a shooting guard. I think I'm just going to go with Nick Smith here. You don't have to pigeonhole him as the point guard or the shooting guard. He kind of has the size for a combo guard. I like his upside. I'm going to take him at 11 for Utah. So 12, you got OKC Irk.
All right. You took Nick Smith, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, OKC. I feel like this is a really good spot. Their defense has been okay, but I feel like if they had some better spacing, that they would be very difficult to stop Shea. If he, the more shooting you have. So I'm going to take Grady Dick for the Thunder.
Dang, that was my next pick because next is New Orleans, and I liked him a lot in New Orleans. New Orleans doesn't really have like a pressing need that could be filled with this pick. Like long term, a center, like a 3-and-D center, would be great next to Zion, but there's not a 3-and-D center in this draft. Filipowski, not impressed with his defense. I think you just swing for the best player on the board, highest upside. At this point, that's probably Keontae George. So, fit-wise, kind of questionable. I think he might need a year or two. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just going to go with him. Because New Orleans has a lot of quality depth and youth at this point. 14, you got the Lakers.
If I'm the Lakers, feel pretty good about this guy still being on the board. Feel like, once again, spacing is an issue, and this guy can come in and help space the floor. I think this is a perfect spot for him as well, and that's Jet Howard.
That was gonna be my next pick. Oh man,
too bad.
Yeah, too bad. Because I liked him. I liked him for the Knicks because I think the Knicks could use another scorer, perimeter scorer.
See, this draft has Dallas now at 15.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas could still play their way in and end up with 15. Like, it's so up in the air. It's not really worth tripping about.
No, I'm not tripping.
Yeah. I don't know what to do here. Like, Brunson's their point guard now. They filled that hole, obviously. They could go for a 2 or a 3. I'm just going to... God, I don't know what I want to do here. This is tough. This is the part of the draft where I'm just very kind of unsure. I'm just going to go for Hood Schifino because I think he's big enough to play next to Brunson. Could be that scorer off the bench.
Kind of plays like Brunson.
Huh?
I said it kind of plays like Brunson.
Yeah, like that fit isn't great, but you bring him off the bench, help bench offense. I don't know. Like, there's nobody else I want to go there that I think really fits well that should be taken that high. So that was a tough pick. 16, you got Atlanta.
Man, Atlanta's weird too. I mean, they gave up so much for their backcourt. I'm gonna take a flyer here. I think this person could become that defensive piece that they need, and that's Leonard Miller.
I like it because, believe it or not, that's who I was eyeing for Utah. They have so many firsts that swinging for upside would make sense for them. At 17, you got Utah. They could look for they took Nick Smith. I think they could take another guard. I think Nick Smith has the size to play the 2. It'll be interesting to see his measurements. That's one of the guys I'm really looking at. Or you could go with Dariq Whitehead, who was considered he was a very highly touted prospect and fell down draft boards a little bit this year. Actually, that's probably what I'm going to do here. I'm not really sure if there's anybody with clearly higher upside than Dariq Whitehead at this point in the draft. So I'm going to take him.
Okay.
18, you got Golden State.
All right, so Warriors. Man, so much depends on what they're doing this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just see this player on the board and need some depth at guard for their future, and I think they go with Cason Wallace.
Yeah, he makes sense. Really good defender, questionable offensively, but
him and Poole could.
When GP 2 weeks is out for 2 weeks, he could maybe be a poor man's GP 2 weeks, or maybe a rich man's GP 2 weeks. Who knows? Houston at 19. I mean, I just like their roster is. I mean, they got their point guard Kevin Porter Jr. / small forward because he's listed as small forward everywhere else, but he's more their point guard. Jalen Green at the 2, Jabari Smith at the power forward, Şengün at the center, Tar Eason I thought was a solid pick. Like, they got some pieces. I think I feel like at this point, okay, well, you got pieces at multiple positions, just swing for upside with a GG Jackson, but also that type of player seems like what's exactly wrong with Houston at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Might as well give them all of them. Yeah. Houston has Scoot, too.
I don't think it hurt them to get like an older guy. Older guy. What's up?
Buddy, the Knicks have Dallas's pick as long as it's not in the top 10 too, so they still have a pick even though they traded ours or theirs to us.
You know what I'm gonna do? I think an older player point guard, like I would like to get another point guard for this team. They got Ty Washington last year.
They got Scoot.
Oh, they got Scoot. Okay, never mind. Because I was thinking keeping a certain player in Houston.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll just go with freaking, I don't know. And do you know how well versed are you on Ryan Rupert? Because I see his name a lot, but that's a guy I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a Houston guy, but that's definitely someone that I could see being a steal at this point of the draft. It's got a lot of those tools that several players from Australia or that the NBL have shown in the NBA recently.
Yeah, or I feel like Noah Clowney might fit off the bench because I mean they got Garuba. They just got. I'm just gonna go with Rupert. These teams are tough that have a lot of like youth pieces that they've added in the past couple of years, and it's hard to know like which ones will shake out and which ones won't. And you're just adding to a log jam at every position in terms of youth at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for us, or unfortunately for us, that's not the case. Okay, you got the Nets, then I got the Nets.
Wait, who'd you end up picking?
I picked Rupert.
Okay. Rupert. All right.
Let's get a guy with cartilage in their knees. I agree. Mute that, bozo. That's a good thing to have in a prospect. Houston has a logjam of guys that think they are him. Absolutely.
I'm gonna get them a backup center that can kind of play the same way Claxton plays, and that's Derek Lively.
Yep, Lively. I don't think he'll last to the Blazers' first round pick, unfortunately. I like that pick. And then with the Nets not having like their own future first, they can't really go the rebuild route in order to get upside. They obviously have some pieces and they're still an okay team, but they really need long-term upside. I think at this point, this is, they already have a first-round pick. They had a high floor guy, in my opinion, Derek Lively. I think at this point, this is where you could see a team taking a chance on Gigi Jackson. So that's what I'm going for them.
Cool.
22.
That was the other guy I was deciding between. So.
Yeah, cool. Okay. That's the two guys I would have taken. So we agree. 22 is Miami, and then 23 I get to pick for Portland.
I like Bryce Sensabaugh here. I think he'd be a good fit for them. I'm gonna take Bryce.
So at this point, I'm not thrilled with what's on the board for Portland. I'm not thrilled, but I think there is a clear pick here. Before I make this pick, and your opinion is not going to change my pick. Okay, who would you take here at Portland? With Portland,
I'm taking Chris Murray, and I'm happy with it.
That's who I was going to take. I wouldn't be as thrilled, but I'd be okay with it at 23. Just hope he can come in like Keegan has. I just, he's a lesser version of Keegan for the most part to me. Keegan's been solid this year, though, so,
Yeah. We're not trading any picks, so, yeah.
At 24, yeah. We'll have episodes like that later this offseason. On our second channel, Blazers Uprise Live, link in the description box below. Go subscribe. We're streaming there tomorrow.
All right.
24, Sacramento. Yeah, we'll do this to our second round pick, and then I don't care about the rest.
All right, the Kings. They obviously have a good roster. They will be uh, maybe losing Harrison Barnes this offseason. Um, I think, man, why is he not on my list? I can't find him on my list. Hold on just a second. I gotta find
Who are
someone.
you thinking of?
Can I not add to my? For some reason I can't. Oh wait, I can. Is there no search button?
No, you can search by position, but
What? Okay, he's listed as a point guard. I'm just gonna take Kobe Buffkin for them.
okay. At 25, we got Memphis, which, I mean, has depth at literally every position. I guess they could use some but I got so many guys, though. Tyus Jones, their backup point guard. He's not a free agent, is he?
Tyus Jones signed a 2-year deal last summer.
Yeah,
no.
so 1 year left. I mean, I guess they could go wing. That wouldn't hurt. Actually, they got a really good defensive team. They struggle shooting the ball. Like, Filipowski was supposed to be a shooter. Wasn't as good as advertised shooting-wise at Duke, if I recall correctly. But offensive big man, center. Yeah, let's just get them off the board. Memphis is hard to pick for because they have a bunch of youth at every position. 26 is Indiana.
Indiana again. They took
Taylor Hendricks.
Taylor Hendricks earlier in the draft. I like this player as kind of just some big man depth for Turner. Even though he has played well this year, he has been injury prone in the past. So, and then this makes it so they basically got my 2 favorite players in this draft, and that's Deron Holmes. Are you muted or just not talking?
Oh, I was muted. Oh, I was just looking for him. Okay. Deron Holmes. Okay. 27 is Charlotte. They took Brandon Miller at 4. God, Charlotte's just a freaking mess. I guess Noah Clowney could make some sense if they don't like PJ Washington long term. Potential like 3 and D, 4, kind of tweener big, but at least he can shoot. They have their center spot locked up with Mark Williams and Nick Richards. Yeah, I'll just go Noah Clowney for them.
Okay.
28 is Utah, Eric. They took Nick Smith and Dariq Whitehead.
All right.
So, yeah, I struggled with these Utah's picks.
Yeah. So I think they're probably just going upside. I think you can never have enough big depth. I think this is a good spot for Khalil Ware.
Okay.
Backing up Kessler.
29 is Indiana. They took Taylor Hendricks, Deron Holmes. They have a lot on the wings on the perimeter with Halliburton, McConnell, Buddy Hield. I think their best play is to trade Buddy Hield at some point. Start Mathurin. They would need another long-term starting wing because I like Chris Duarte better off the bench. Is there anyone that could be a long-term starting wing? Although Halliburton does have some size. I'm stuck between two guys here. I'm stuck between Lewis and Terquavion Smith, who's more of a guard, but Halliburton does have size. I'm just going to go with Maxwell Lewis. I think he offers pretty good upside at this point in the draft and can shoot the ball. Has some creation potential, some flashes of really impressive creation ability. So I'm just going to go with him. I don't know if he'll ever be able to defend, but that's my pick for them. Clippers at 30.
Clippers at 30. I think this would be kind of sick. I think this is one of the most perfect spots for this player, and that's Marcus Sasser.
Yeah, I already had my mouse on the draft button.
Yeah.
All right, 31 is Detroit. They took Victor Wembanyama with the first pick. I mean, you got Cade and Ivy as your backcourt. Wembanyama can play with Duren. Maybe you play Wembanyama at the 3, Duren at the 4, Wiseman at the 5. I'm just kidding. I mean, they're just in position to take probably the highest upside guy on the board. They could use a bench scorer. I'm going to take Terquavion Smith.
All right.
I think he's, at this point, maybe the best player left on the board. I like him.
Sorry, there's a donation, and it's asking for you to specifically read it.
What? This latest one?
Yep.
Why? Duca Doomis, $5 dono, says, I like a duda cha-cha.
Nice.
Cool. Thank you for the $5 dono.
He didn't really ask for you to do it.
Well, I did it anyway because you've done it in the past. So, all right, 32. Indiana again. They took Hendricks, Holmes, Maxwell Lewis. So, stash.
Jeez, man. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm just gonna stash Najee.
Okay, I like that. 33, it's San Antonio. They took Amon Thompson with the 3rd pick. At this point, I'm... Long term, I don't think Trey Jones is the answer at point guard. Proctor was a highly regarded prospect, was playing better later in the year. I'm gonna take Tyrese Proctor for San Antonio at 33 to potentially be a guy that I think could offer a little more upside than Trey Jones does. Trey Jones is solid, but I'll take a swing a little bit with Proctor there.
Yeah.
34, Charlotte, Clowney and Miller, 2 teammates, by the way. We didn't plan that. Unfortunately, no other Alabama guys that make sense here, I don't think.
I think they just need players. I'm actually someone who came on towards the end of the season, is looking pretty solid. May have put himself as a first round grade in a lot of big boards, is City Sissoko.
All right, there we go. At 35, we got Orlando. They took Jarris Walker and Jordan Hawkins. Long term, they probably need a backup center. Or maybe just a guy that can fill that spot. Yeah.
Drew Timmy.
Nah, I'll just go with a Dembona here. All right. 36, you got OKC. They took Grady Dick with 12. They only have 3 picks in this draft. It's a miracle. Only 3.
All right. And who have they picked so far?
Grady Dick.
Grady Dick. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
Just had someone for them to take. Where are they? I think they go for upside once again and just take someone that they could either stash or, play in the G League. So I think they say, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right, but Bilal Koulibaly. Koulibaly.
Koulibaly is what I feel like it should be, but I have no clue. Okay, at 37, I mean, like, what does Boston even need? I guess, like, you could go with, like, a Swiss Army knife type of player, maybe, like the role Evan Turner used to. I don't know. Or just more shooting. I mean, they have Sam Hauser. But, yeah. Where's he at? Where is he? What the hell? I think this would be a really good landing spot for Julian Strother.
Okay. All right, 38. We've got the Kings back on the board.
Yeah, they took Kobe Buffkin.
Since Sabonis can play up top, I think this is a good spot for Trace Jackson Davis since he can't shoot threes. Have multiple good passing big men that could possibly play together. So I'm going to take Trace Jackson Davis.
Nice. Back with Washington. I feel like they could probably sign center depth. They got Porzingis and Gafford. Kuzma at the 4. So they could go for another 4-5, but there's really none on the board after Jackson Davis went. I also think just swinging for upside in their position makes a lot of sense. So they already took Anthony Black at 7. So they could go for a more traditional guard. I think if Amari Bailey's here, or do you think he's going back? Should we just ignore him, or
I don't know. Could be either way.
I feel like he should, but if Amari Bailey's here, like
he started playing better at the end of the season, so
yeah, I feel like he would be that second-year guy that would get back up into the top 10. Let's just ignore him. I think he goes back. I think it makes way too much sense for him to go back. So here I'll just go with Podziemski. I feel like I butchered his name, but 6'6" with some playmaking. Seems like he could be a sneaky good pick here.
Yeah, he's rising up draft boards pretty quickly.
All right, Tyrese Proctor and Amen Thompson were the Spurs pick. We're getting to the Blazers pick very soon.
All right, 40th pick.
That's a good question, Trevin. He said, why do the positions go power forward, small forward instead of small forward, power forward? That's a great question. I'll forward your complaint to fanspo.com. Lots of scrolling.
I think they're a team that they took. Doesn't make sense with the other guys they took. I really like this guy as just a good glue guy, role player. I think he'd be a good fit next to Sohan. And they already drafted his teammate earlier, and that's Mark Mitchell from Duke.
Mark Mitchell. Let's skip. Oh, there he is, guy. Ooh, you're going to pick for the Blazers at 42.
Oh, great. Amani Bates, here you go.
Ew. So the Hornets have already taken Sissoko, Clowney, Miller. So they're like forward positions they really got down. I mean, I guess just a dude. Ah, goodness, man. Goodness. I don't know. I'm just gonna go with Colby Jones at this point. They could use another guard. I'll go Colby Jones. All right, 42. This will be interesting.
You got Colby Jones?
Yep, 42. It's Portland.
All right, let me just find Colby Jones real quick.
He was at the top of my board. I don't know what board you were going off of. I went off ESPN.
All right. Oh, they. Wait, why does it say Anthony Black? Oh, because I didn't trade him. Yeah. So we got Asur and Chris Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like that's a really good haul so far. Man. I'm going to look at chat real quick. Drew Timmy. No, I'm not taking Drew Timmy. And Amani Bates makes no sense with already drafting Asur.
There is 4 guys for me that I would take here or consider here.
Yeah, and I'm guessing I'm not considering any of them.
It'll be interesting to see if you pick one of the 4.
I do want to come out of this draft with some sort of center prospect, and I believe this guy, if healthy, could be very underrated. And I'm a Beaver, so this is not a biased pick, but I'm gonna take N'Faly Dante.
N'Faly Dante.
Yep.
That was not one of the guys
I told you.
We can either finish the draft or I can tell you the 4 guys I was looking at.
You can tell me.
So, the 4 guys that I was looking at, I think Jaime Hawkes has a good chance of being a role player, and anybody with a good chance of being a role player in the middle of the second round, I think, is a solid pick. Keontae Johnson I like.
Yeah.
As a shooter, athletic, yes, he has his health issues. If he didn't have health scare, I feel like he'd be a first-round draft prospect. So at that point,
he's a little older now too, but
yeah, I just feel like he could come in and maybe just be a solid role player, athletic, solid defensive prospect, a little mid-range pull-up. Like, I like his game a lot.
The reason why, we now have Anthony, Nas, Sharp, Usser. We have way too many kind of 6'5" wings on this team. Not that Ant's 6'5", but you know what I mean.
The other 2 guys I was considering play really good defense in my opinion, but struggle to shoot. So with a SAR, maybe doesn't make a ton of sense. But Jordan Walsh, if he was on the board, Jordan Walsh is a guy I'd look at. And then the other guy would surprise you. The other guy would surprise you. Give me a wild guess.
Who have you said so far?
I've said Jaime Jaquez,
Okay,
Jordan Walsh, Keontae Johnson.
those are going to be three of my four guesses. I have no idea who the fourth one is.
The other guy who I feel like is undervalued right now is Andre Jackson.
You love his UConn, right?
Yep. I mean, they were a 4 seed, and I was saying I had them in the championship, and look where they're at right now. They might be the favorite. Actually, they are the favorite. So, I've already been right on them. But, I mean, his defensive ability, athleticism, size, rebounding, passing ability, like all those traits is going to be hard to pass up. Like the one thing is he can't shoot, but he's one of those guys where, like, if he could be an okay shooter, he'd be a top 10 to 15 prospect in the draft. Even if he doesn't become a shooter, all the other things that he does well, I feel like could give him a chance to see the court in the NBA. I like him in the second. I feel like he has some like high level role player upside. So it's just like, do you take, like if Walsh is on the board, I mean, what is Walsh specific?
Walsh is talking about going back.
Yeah, I'm just like, you're going to take Walsh, and Walsh is younger, obviously, but... Oh, I'm scrolling amongst pages here. Walsh is younger, obviously, but... I mean, Andre Jackson, like, they both struggle shooting the ball. I don't know if there's a case for, like, Walsh over Andre Jackson. I don't know. Like, the only case for me is that he's younger, because everything else, I'm not sure Walsh has an advantage. Like, I like Andre Jackson a lot, so... He could kind of replace that Josh Hart, like, guy with an edge. I don't know. If he could shoot, he would be easily a first round pick. So
Derek Lively went to the Brooklyn Nets.
Yep. So who do we have? Portland coming out with 6, 23, and 42. We had Asir
Thompson, Chris Murray, and N'Faly Dante.
Yeah.
Interesting mix.
Yeah, solid mix there. Andre Jackson on 2.6 3-point attempts per game, shot 28% from 3. Free throw percentage 65% from 3. Gonzaga just didn't even guard him when they played, and he isn't a shooter. He was 0 for 2. But I don't know, man. Like, at that point in the draft, like, I understand earlier not wanting to gamble on a guy that can't shoot, but at that point in the draft, when you got a guy with so many different traits, at that point, it's like, you teach him how to shoot, you got to steal automatically. And, you can't teach somebody to be super athletic or see the court the way he does. Yeah, he could be the guy, depending on who we take. Like, because we took Asar Thompson, he didn't make as much sense. But, like, if we end up with, like, a Wemby, like a 7'5" guy that can shoot, and shooting becomes even more of a strength of ours because you got a 7'5" guy that can shoot, then that makes a ton of sense in the second round. So, anyway.
Danny Edelman says, honestly, if we don't win the next game, I'm going to be done with Billups. Danny, I've got some news for you. We are not going to win more than one game the rest of the season, so I don't know why you're expecting this team to win, nor are we going to play any of our best players. So I don't understand that. And why would you be done with Billups after watching our next game against the Pelicans on a back-to-back versus everything else he's done the last almost 2 seasons?
Yeah. Somebody has to see the entire draft, so that's the...
Oh. We're getting a look at Tori's...
My what?
Just your Twitter and your...
Yeah, I showed that a while ago. Oh, well.
I know.
Yeah, so that's the draft. How do you feel about Jordan Hawkins? Because obviously I'm pretty high on him.
I like Jordan Hawkins a lot. I don't think he's going to be top 10 high, but definitely someone who could go late teens, early 20s, kind of like Malachi did last year.
Yeah, I'm not super enamored with the prospects like 6 to 12 or 13 compared to like I think the gap between like 6 and 20 isn't much. So I feel like this year maybe more than ever I still need to watch tape on more guys and even guys that I'm high on.
Yeah.
But I just think his shooting ability,
Mm-hmm.
off the catch, off the dribble, it's just going to come down to can he create, and I feel like he has a real quick trigger that makes it easier to create from the perimeter when defenders really have to be up on you to take away your three. I just see him having a super high floor and like potential to maybe be a 20-point per game scorer.
Yeah.
I like him.
Definitely, if he carries UConn to a championship, that would be good for him too. I just don't know if he's. I mean, I think he could. I'm not saying this can't happen, but between that Nick Smith, Grady Dick, Keontae George trio, I just have a hard time seeing him, despite some of their struggles later in the season, passing any of them.
Yeah, I like Nick Smith more than Jordan Hawkins. I just really like Jordan Hawkins for Orlando, especially after they take. I had him taking Jarris Walker. Why did I think I had him taking the Thompson twin? I turned down the Thompson twin, but they have creation from forward spots. So if you're able to get like a shooter like that to play next to him, like Grady Dick is the other guy, but I don't really understand the top 7, top 8 love with him. He's a good prospect. Should definitely go in the lottery. I don't know. I don't know what separates him from a Jordan Hawkins. He's a couple inches taller, but otherwise what, So on a team that has size and is looking for a 2, I think you could definitely make the case for Hawkins ahead of him. Nick Smith I have higher than both, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, good to talk some draft.
Yeah, very sure. Very true.
Long stream. I had no idea how long that was taking, but yeah, good to talk some draft. We'll have a short Blazers Uprise live tomorrow, and then we'll have a post-game stream tomorrow that won't go this long. There's like 2 post-game streams in a row that have gone like 3 hours. I cut out little bits of monotonous off the last stream, so
8 games tomorrow for picks against the spread, so if you're into that, join us to help make Chat's picks.
Yep. And with that being said, that's a wrap for this episode of the Blazers Uprise Postgame Show. Remember to use that promo code BELIEVE for 50% rewards on Bet Online. And we're out of here. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Sunday night, a good rest of your weekend. It's crazy that it's only 9:40. Feels much later than that. Have a good rest of your nights. We'll catch you tomorrow. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.